Hey guys, tonight we slip beneath the hush of midnight to pad across a desert that once birthed the oldest known city in the Americas. You arrive barefoot, toes sinking into powder-fine sand still cool from yesterday's twilight, and a mischievous voice in your head reminds you that dehydration hits harder than any cliffhanger I could write. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and whatever ungodly hour your clock is flashing, because time zones are society's favorite illusion. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sky is a deep indigo canvas streaked with meteor dust and the quiet promise of dawn. You breathe in air tinged with salt from the Pacific and mesquite smoke from unseen hearths. Somewhere behind the dunes, waves pummel the shore like an eternal drumline. But here, in the Soup Valley, only a desert heartbeat thrums beneath your soles. Ahead, Caral's half-finished silhouettes rise, flat-topped pyramids that look like giant bread loaves cooling under starlight. The ground crunches with every step. Each grain of sand carries memories of shattered shells, pulverized gourds, and charcoal from forgotten feasts. It is roughly 2600 BCE, give or take a century because radiocarbon wristwatches bicker among themselves, and history hasn't even realized it's late for work. You glide past reed mats where families still doze under llama wool blankets. A desert dog with pointed ears lifts its head, decides you're uninteresting, and flops back down. Farther on, a cluster of laborers gathers near a half-dug canal, their breath misting like speech bubbles in the cool air. They loosen stiff shoulders, sharing one last joke before sunrise demands muscle. The main pyramid looms beyond them. 5 stories of Adobe bricks sculpted from river mud and baked by sun. Even unfinished, it radiates steady confidence, like a grandparent who's seen empires rise and is unimpressed by all of them. A bone flute wails, 5 notes stretch thin as horizon light. You pivot toward the musician standing atop a low terrace. His instrument is a pelican ulna polished smooth by years of playing and maybe a touch of ceremonial llama fat. The sound slides through air like a silk ribbon, vibrating in your sternum. Across the plaza, another flute answers, then a rattle made from dried cactus pods joins, followed by a double-headed drum that thumps deep enough to startle your breakfast cravings. In this city, dawn isn't announced by roosters. It's orchestrated by people who believe music keeps the universe from drifting off-key. That's your cue to find the central fire pit. Being late to the first dawn ceremony of the year would brand you as the new kid who can't read the schedule. A teenage torchbearer appears, twisting a reed torch drenched in llama tallow. Light flickers across her coca-stained teeth as she grins and hands you a cotton cord. You knot it 3 times around your wrist, unsure whether it marks you as visitor or very small sacrificial offering. Some scholars in your century will swear cords like these are early precursors to quipus, while others insist they're just fancy friendship bracelets. Either way, you're wearing history before breakfast. Near the circular plaza, elder women fuel a low fire with warango branches. Sparks rise, twirling like micrometeors before fading into the still dark sky. One elder sprinkles clay dust onto the flames, and it releases a fragrance reminiscent of petrichor and warm adobe. She wears a necklace strung with spondylus shells, vibrant orange against her muted tunic. Those shells traveled here by raft from what will one day be Ecuador, surfing down the Humboldt Current long before anyone invented loyalty points. They're status symbols, spiritual conduits, and low-tech neon signs that scream, "I've got connections." Your stomach rumbles, betrayed by the scent of smoked anchovies and sweet potato slices. 2 men unwrap a woven basket lined with cactus fiber and set out breakfast on calabash bowls because pottery hasn't shown up to the party yet. You accept a handful. Salty fish, earthy tuber, faint chilly heat that pries your eyelids open. The anchovies glisten with ocean oil, proof that trade nets stretch farther than irrigation ditches. While you chew, a vendor sidles up, hawking cotton bundles soft as morning fog. Caral's fishermen crave cotton to float their nets, and farmers crave the fishermen's fish guts to fertilize gourds. Everyone, it seems, depends on everyone else's leftovers. The sun, reluctant but obligated, peels itself over the eastern hills, washing the valley in apricot light. Green ribbons of irrigated land flash like emerald advertorials against the monochrome desert. Canals snake in tidy grids, each fork a calculated gamble on water flow. You dip your fingers into a side channel. The water numbs your skin and races off toward fields of squash and beans. Without bronze or iron, locals carved these channels with stone spades and stubborn love of produce. Later textbooks will label this complex hydraulic engineering, but right now it's simply breakfast insurance. Sudden commotion yanks your attention back to the plaza. The sunken circular plaza is already humming with anticipation. It's a perfect bowl carved into the earth, benches stepping downward to a central hearth. You join a stream of citizens descending like water into a well. The moment you reach the bottom, sound transforms. The walls bounce every whisper into surround sound intimacy. Priest astronomers in feathered crowns raise staffs etched with spirals and lines. One staff lines up with the still bright Venus just above the horizon. Another points toward a notch where the sun will sit on solstice. Are the grooves astronomical sight lines or decorative bragging rights? Historians remain politely confused. Chanting begins, sharp syllables punctuated by drum kicks. Bone flutes weave counter-melodies. Rattles puncture the rhythm like musical exclamation marks. You catch fragments of meaning. Invocations to water spirits, requests for mild winds, cheeky insults toward rival valleys upriver. Then a young initiate steps forward, scattering powdered chili into the embers. Red sparks arc upward, and a plume of spicy smoke coils into the sky. A breath in the wrong direction scorches your throat, but you keep your composure. Coughing during sacred rites would probably get you assigned to latrine digging detail. At ceremony's end, silence spreads faster than rumor. One heartbeat, 2, 3, then collective exhale. People file out, expressions serene, gossip engines revving back up. You climb the plaza steps, blinking at full daylight. Children chase one another with hummingbird feathers, leaving miniature tornadoes of dust behind. Traders unroll mats displaying obsidian shards, dried seaweed cakes, starfish freeze-dried by sun. A shell merchant insists you lick his inventory. Authentic spondylus tastes of brine, clever fakes taste chalky. You pass on the tongue test, promising to trust his reputation instead. Labor crews assemble for the stone hall. 30 workers loop braided fiber ropes through a massive river cobble. They chant step, pull, rest, then step again. No wheels, no beasts of burden, just human calves turning geology into architecture. The supervisor carries a conch horn, blasting notes when rhythm falters. Visitors from your century might preach about ergonomics, but here teamwork and song double as quality control. Meanwhile, artisans on scaffold platforms apply Adobe plaster laced with mica flecks. The reflective particles dazzle in sunlight, rumored to deter ill wishes from sky spirits and, incidentally, provide built-in stage lighting. Midday heat climbs like a relentless sales pitch. Workers retreat under simple reed awnings, gulping water stored in gourds. You join a group of canal diggers who joke about the valley's unpredictable river mood swings. One elder claims the water once vanished for 3 entire moons, forcing everyone to barter cotton for uphill snowmelt. Whether drought folklore or meteorological history, the tale prompts a pragmatic shrug. Better deepen the channels while the river is still generous. You feel the hard truth of survival etched in calloused palms and sun-creased faces. A sudden gust rattles tall poles around the plaza, each tipped with dangling gourds. The hollow fruits whistle, a polyphonic wind chime that doubles as avian deterrent. Cotton masks appear, tied over mouths to block swirling dust. The teenage torchbearer hands you a strip of cotton. You tie it on, grateful for the makeshift filter though it smells faintly of last week's anchovy haul. Vision narrowed, you spot a row of small pits where seeds dry on woven mats. Gourds, beans, maybe experimental varieties no other valley has dared plant. Innovation, it seems, sprouts wherever risk meets hunger. Late afternoon tilts shadows into elongated fingers. From a modest mound you scan the city's layout. Pyramids arranged in 2 mirrored clusters, plazas offset like syncopated musical beats, residential quarters hugging outer edges in orderly rows. Urban planning minus metal tools equals a humble flex that will baffle future. You wake to a faint shimmer of dawn glancing off Adobe, the ground beneath your reed mat still radiating last night's residual warmth. A lone panpipe trill hangs in the chilled air as you sit up, cotton shawl sliding to your lap. Somewhere behind you, the Pacific crashes its eternal applause, but Caral herself stirs with a subtler rhythm. A collective inhale before another day's grand experiment in city building. Yesterday you were the newcomer lost in ceremony. Today you're drafted straight into the pulse of construction, where 6 monumental mounds compete like stone siblings for height, attention, and cosmic bragging rights. A foreman waves you over, bronze-dark arms slicing the pale sky. He points at the main pyramid, still sleepy in morning shadow, then gestures to a smaller one flanking its southern edge. That, he indicates, is today's focus. You follow a trail of sandal prints between low storehouses and cotton bales, each step crunching a fresh layer of overnight wind-blown sand. The sun peaks above the Andes, painting the valley apricot gold and turning every dust mote into glitter. You try not to stare too long. Desert light makes your eyelids feel like they're thin as moth wings. Workers gather in semicircles beside scaffold ladders built from mesquite poles lashed by fiber rope. Each holds a tool. Stone picks for chipping, wooden paddles for smoothing mud, baskets for hauling gravel. Women and men split tasks fluidly, no rigid gender assignments here, just competence measured by the rhythm of your swing and the steadiness of your step. One mason hands you a trowel carved from carapace bone. The handle still shows faint turtle scuts. Good grip, she grins, then demonstrates the precise twist and press motion that will save your wrists from blistering halfway up the terrace wall. You glance around to orient yourself. 6 pyramids ring the civic heart, 3 per side, staggered like alternating notes in a chord. To the north, the grandest pair, Pyramid Mayor and Pyramid La Galeria. To the south, 3 smaller mounds plus the enigmatic Templo del Anfiteatro. Between them run broad plazas and processional avenues, surfaces now scribbled with countless footprints. When bird's-eye drawings one day illustrate Caral in textbooks, the layout will look deliberate, almost musical. On ground level, it feels like moving through a living score where each platform is a distinct beat. Your brigade begins the climb. The pyramid you face rises maybe 20 meters, tall enough to make thighs burn but manageable with steady pacing. Adobe bricks jut in tidy courses, each brick roughly the size of a shoebox and bearing thumbprints forever petrified by sun. Scholars later wax poetic about the modular uniformity. You're busy discovering how surprisingly springy unfired brick feels underfoot. Halfway up, you pause on a ledge wide enough for 2 people and look back. The Soup River glints like a spilled ribbon of mercury. Fields of squash, beans, and cotton patchwork the valley floor, and beyond, the desert stretches in endless ripples toward the shimmering sea haze. The foreman claps hands, snapping you from reverie. A line of runners ascends narrow switchback ramps, balancing baskets of fresh adobe slurry on shoulders. They dump loads near the wall's edge. Masons scoop globs with hand paddles, smear them into joints, then tamp flush with the turtlebone trowels. Everything smells faintly of wet earth seasoned by salty morning air. You kneel, dig fingers into a basket, and feel the grit, sand, silt, pulverized shell, mixed with straw fibers that act like microscopic rebar. One mainstream fact for the day. Caral's builders perfected Adobe long before any hint of pottery, demonstrating you don't need fired clay to build a civilization. As you settle into rhythm, a teenager scrambles up, drops a new basket, and whispers that attendants will host a midday shell count contest on Pyramid La Galeria. Apparently rival teams stash exotic shells into construction fill. Whichever pyramid amasses the most earns bragging rights and maybe an extra portion of chili stew. A bizarre sport, yes, but it also serves a practical function. Imported shells prime soil with calcium and, historians will later argue, mark construction phases like geological confetti. Of course, other academics insist the shells are purely ritual, sprinkled as offerings to sea deities. The debate will rage hotter than mid-afternoon sun, and your subconscious files it under questions future undergrads will argue about at 2 a.m. The sun climbs. Heat haze dances above plaza floor far below. Sweat trickles down your spine. Reed mask clings damp across cheeks. Masons sing a call-and-response melody. Lyrics about river spirits, irrigation quotas, and whose cousin owes who a gourd of chicha. You catch on quickly, humming along. Work feels lighter when voices bounce off Adobe and vanish into blue sky. At one point the foreman halts the brigade, motions you to peer into a narrow shaft left intentionally inside the mound. Down there, in shadow, you spot dozens of reed bundles wrapped around fish bones. Offering, he explains. Fish bones call the river here even when sky forgets rain. A mainstream archaeologist might note this as early sympathetic magic, embedding marine elements so the city never loses connection to its lifeblood trade route. Break time. You shuffle to the pyramid's terrace level, little higher than the tallest mesquite, where a makeshift awning casts blessed shade. Someone passes a gourd canteen, water infused with coca leaves and mint. Cool, bitter, reviving. You chew a wad of coca leaf offered from a shared pouch, tongue numbing pleasantly. A runner named Lauta flops beside you, pointing toward a distant rocky outcrop. He says that's where stone quarried for the upper tiers lies, and tomorrow his crew will haul slabs the size of sleeping llamas across wooden rollers lubricated by fish oil. You marvel that fish grease doubles as engineering lubricant. Industrial supply chains start humbly. Conversation drifts to rival valleys. Merchants claim a town upriver, Banduria, boasts a pyramid pitch steeper than any here, built by upstarts eager to dethrone Caral as Valley Queen. Historians of your era will highlight this network of early polities, each nudging technology forward through competition. But tension breathes beneath friendly trade, and Lauda warns that too many caravans vanish on desert routes. Bandits, rogue sandstorms, or maybe spirits displeased with disrespectful travelers. You swallow the last of your coca-mint water, not sure which hazard unnerves you more. Back to work. Afternoon sun bakes Adobe until its surface crusts like caramelizing sugar. Crews hustle to finish a course before bricks crack. You stamp down slurry using foot pressure to fuse layers. Someone below shouts. Excitement, not alarm. Workers uncover a cache. A cotton sash woven with interlaced black-white chevrons and tiny clamshell discs sewn along the edges. A cool factoid. Those clam discs still hold a faint mother-of-pearl shimmer despite 4 millennia of burial. The foreman arranges them near the edge for religious specialists to examine later. In your century, the discovery will headline a field report detailing textile symbolism. But right now, the only report is the collective echoing off sun-warmed Adobe. Evening approaches. Breeze swirls sea-cool air uphill. Work crews disband, descending rampways. You flex aching calves, wiping dust stripes from forearms. At plaza base, a communal drum group starts the wind-down beat. Steady, slow, like a giant heart-lowering pulse. As you step onto packed earth, you notice tiny ceramic-looking beads sprinkled near your path. Scoop one up. Not clay, but dried cactus sap rolled into perfect spheres. A mason explains their early moisture indicators. If they swell overnight, dawn crews know humidity will alter Adobe consistency. Primitive but brilliant analog hygrometers. File that under obscure trivia primed to wow future dinner party guests. The day's final rays set Pyramid Mayor aflame in gold. 6 pyramids cast overlapping shadows that weave into a dark lattice across the plaza. Children chase those shadows, leaping from one patch to the next as if lava lurks in the gaps. Proof some games never change. Vendors spark oil lamps inside carved gourds, preparing for the evening trade surge. You drift toward smells of roasting maize and sizzling river shrimp skewers. A woman named Sisa beckons you to her stall where obsidian arrow points glisten like shards of frozen night. She tells you obsidian traveled from the Andes' volcanic flanks, triple their current distance, traded relay style through valleys. She slides one arrowhead across your palm. Its edge is hair-thin, chillingly sharp. Mainstream takeaway. Long-distance exchange networks preceded official roads by millennia. Personal takeaway. Do not trip while carrying obsidian. Scar stories are predictable, but obsidian scars slice reputations too. Sisa offers a trade. Obsidian flake for a tale from beyond the ocean horizon, which she assumes you know firsthand. You spin a story about islands where coconuts fall like self-harvesting fruit and fish gleam blue as midday sky. She laughs, eyes shine. Morning glints off reed-thatched rooftops as you stretch beneath a sky already sharpening from lavender to clean desert blue. A single bone flute note hangs in the air like a question. Then an answering rattle reminds your stomach that dawn ceremonies may be spiritual, but breakfast is profoundly physical. You rise from your mat, brush grains of sand from your elbows, and follow a sweet savory aroma trailing across the plaza. Today belongs to the marketplace. An all-day pageant of color, clamor, and barter that threads Caral together as tightly as cotton fibers in a fisherman's net. You drift with a tide of early shoppers, sandals whispering over packed earth. The 6 pyramids stand to either side like monumental doorposts, their flanks still cool enough to lean against. Vendors colonize every available shade. Under mesquite trees, along sun-warmed adobe walls, atop reed mats unfurled across the plaza floor. Someone bangs a hollow gourd 3 times to mark official opening. Instantly, voices spark and entwine. Haggling, gossip, laughter. The sharp clack of scales balancing goods, forming a soundscape so textured you can almost feel it on your skin. First wave, the cotton stalls. Bundles as soft as cloud fragments tower in tidy stacks. Each dyed one of 3 dozen hues no desert sunrise can compete with. An elderly spinner named Killa pulls you close to marvel at her harvest. Puffs tinted salmon with cochineal, cornflower blue with crushed lapis dust, sun yellow from marigold petals steeped overnight in river water. She lets you bury hands in a mound. Fibers slip between fingers smooth as whispering silk. Mainstream fact check. Caral's mastery of cotton cultivation predates domesticated maize in this region, proving textiles sometimes outran tortillas in the race toward civilization. As you examine a skein, Killa shares a market rumor. A shipment of rare purple dye sea snails arrived at dawn, driven inland by traders so quick their sandals still shed salt. One snail secretes enough dye for just a thumb-sized patch of cloth. She sighs, half joking that she'd trade her favorite grandson, who keeps oversleeping net-mending duty, for a pouch of that royal pigment. You laugh politely and edge away, deciding not to ask the grandson's opinion. A bell-clear shout draws your attention to an adjacent stall bristling with net floats. Fishermen weave cotton twine around hollow gourds, knotting loops so precise you suspect spare time was invented purely for knot perfectionism. A netmaker named Tupac invites you to test the weight of a finished section. It feels feather-light, yet the interlaced twine resists your tug with surprising tenacity. He explains that cotton's strength lies not only in fibers but in the community behind them. Planters, dyers, spinners, knotters, and weavers all timing their tasks, so the upcoming anchovy migration meets ready nets. Historians will label this integrated labor chain early evidence of vertical complementarity. You label it proof that dinner needs a chorus line. Across the aisle, a young woman, face half hidden by a crimson scarf, spreads spondylus shells upon a woven mat. Each shell flashes ridges of orange and pink, edges serrated like the smile of a shy shark. When sunlight kisses them, they glow as if illuminated from within. You kneel entranced. The vendor, whose name is Lakla, nudges a shell toward you and explains its twin purpose: ornament for high-status necklaces and currency for long-distance trade. She taps a fingernail on the inner nacre, producing a faint chime. Hear that? Real spondylus sings. Fake shells are mute. You hold the shell to your ear and, sure enough, detect a subtle resonance, part flute, part sea hush. She offers a tiny clay jar of powdered shell dust, ground from broken fragments, to sprinkle in adobe, strengthening bricks and, when mixed with ochre, creating shimmering wall paint. Some scholars in your century will later debate whether this mineral addition improves structural integrity or merely satisfies aesthetic cravings. Historians are still debating this question. Either way, the concept of walls that sparkle seems reason enough to carry buckets of shells across desert miles. You trade a carved gourd button you'd been gifted for a pair of shell fragments. Lakla smiles approval, calling it a fair memory exchange, and gestures you onward into the market's densest corridor. There the air thickens with competing fragrances. Sun-dried seaweed, roasted maize, crushed chili, and musky chicha spill from woven gourd jugs. Llamas snort impatience, rope tethers looping around Adobe stakes, while their handlers haggle over cargo fees. Driftwood sculptures depicting pelicans and stingrays lean against a low wall. A boy demonstrates how their carved eyes glitter when rotated beneath the sun. He swears these talismans ward off storms, though considering Caral's rainfall schedule, maybe storms feel too shy to show up anyway. A crowd clusters near a central table fashioned from a door-sized mesquite plank. On it lie obsidian knives so finely honed you can read morning sky in their edges. A master napper named Pasha flicks his wrist, splitting a slender blade from a nodule with a soft pop. Shards scatter like ink strokes across parchment. He announces a throwing knife contest at midday. First to stick 3 blades into a goat-hide target wins a basket of chili cakes. Beneath showmanship glimmers practicality, tool production as both performance and product quality test. You sign up, partly to challenge yourself, mostly for the chili cakes. A gong fashioned from a giant scallop shell booms once. Time for the daily sea-to-desert exchange parade. You follow spectators toward the avenue between Pyramid La Galeria and the central plaza. Musicians line the route. Bone flutes trilling salt spray melodies, gourds rattling like tumbling pebbles, drums beating the cadence of oars thunking against raft gunnels. Traders process 2 by 2, bearing baskets on wooden litters. In front march cotton farmers, shoulders draped in sky-blue shawls dyed with indigo tin from desert shrubs. They hold bundles of finished thread aloft like festival banners. Behind them stride fishermen, still wearing reed-woven sandals speckled with crusted salt. One proudly hoists a giant dried manta ray wing, shimmering silver in the sun. Spectators toss flower petals, dried tadora reeds shredded to confetti, across the path. A priest with a staff carved into double-headed condor announces today's highlight. A gift of spondylus from coastal allies for Caral's irrigation goddess, in thanks for last harvest's bumper catch. 2 acolytes swing incense gourds, scent of sweetgrass and chili drifting over the crowd. A hush descends as a young girl steps forward, hands trembling beneath a platter holding 9 perfect shells arranged in spiral. She kneels at a fire hearth outside the circular plaza and sets the platter into the coals. Flames lick the shells, snapping with tiny pops. The priest recites a litany requesting calm seas, gentle currents, and plentiful anchovies. The ceremony ends, applause erupts, and the market springs back alive, only louder, as if blessed by celebratory volume. Vendors wave discount gestures, musicians up-tempo. Children chase each other between stalls, shell chips clinking in little pouches tied at their waists. You make mental note. Caral might lack currency in coin form, but value flows through shells, cotton skeins, and future promises. Hunger leads you to a food alley where reed roof lean-to shelter clay-lined fire pits. A cook named Amaru skewers river shrimp onto cactus spines and drizzles them with algarobo syrup before laying them across hot stones. He slaps down a wedge of squash seasoned in sea salt and chili. You barter one of your shell fragments for a full plate. The first bite surprises. Shrimp coated in sweet syrup that caramelizes at pit heat, crunching into smoky chili finish. You tell Amaru his recipe is genius. He shrugs and claims he stole it from a sailor who claimed he stole it from a shark. Culinary plagiarism apparently predates footnotes. Belly satisfied, attention returns to trade games. At the throwing knife contest, you square up to the goat-hide target. Pasha hands you 3 obsidian blades, edges glinting with surgical threat. You exhale, align index finger along dull spine, flick wrist, blade arcs, rotates twice, and thunks into target's outer ring. Not bad. Crowd ooze politely. Second throw lands dead center. Cheers spike. Third blade, adrenaline surging, sails high, clipping target's top and spinning into dust. Mixed applause, but your cumulative score still earns second place and a consolation stack of chili cakes. Pasha laughs, claps your shoulder, and promises a rematch after moonrise when the cool air steadies nerves. Tucking cakes into shawl pocket, you notice a knot of traders converging at a shell appraisal booth. A middle-aged man unfolds a reed mat covered in small, flat shells tinted rose. Murmurs ripple. New lagoon find? Maybe fake. Taste test. he offers you one. The outer surface is matte, lacking the glossy luster of genuine spondylus. You recall Lacla's advice and tap the interior. Night recedes like a slow-pulling tide, and you surface from dream just as the sky blushes a fragile pearl gray. A hush blankets Caral. No vendors calling, no stone being hauled, only the almost imperceptible hum of desert wind sliding across Adobe angles. You lie still on your reed mat listening. Then, faint and solitary, a single tone threads the air. High, pure, trembling at the edge of audibility. It is followed by a second, lower note that seems to hover in your chest cavity. The duet suspends itself above the western plaza for an impossibly long beat, and, just when you think it will fade, a third voice enters, a reedy countermelody that pirouettes around the first two like a hummingbird around cactus bloom. You sit up, every nerve sharpened. The musicians of the bone flutes are awake, and that means Caral is about to unwrap another layer of itself. Yesterday you bartered shells and cotton. Today you will crawl inside the city's lungs and hear it breathe. Throwing a shawl across shoulders, you follow the music through pre-dawn chiaroscuro, feet crunching rhythmically on compacted earth. Each note you step closer clarifies another fragment. Faint overtones, ghostly echoes bouncing off pyramid walls, hints of distant drums still asleep. By the time you reach the circular plaza's rim, the sky has shifted to milky lavender and the fire pit at center glows with banked embers. Half a dozen figures stand around the coals. Their silhouettes are slim, posture relaxed yet uncanny in symmetry. Each musician mirrors the stance of the neighbor beside them. Their flutes, pale bone against dusky dawn, angle upward like tiny telescopes aimed at Venus shimmering in the western sky. One elder notices you and crooks a finger, inviting you closer. You descend the terrace steps, feeling the acoustic envelope tighten. The plaza amplifies each breath, each shuffle of sandals. The lead flutist, call him Yupon, lowers his instrument, a polished pelican ulna gleaming with well-oiled luster. Without speaking, he hands it to you. The bone is warm from dawn-chilled hands, lighter than you expected, feather-light yet solid. 7-finger holes line the upper side, each beveled smooth. At the far end, tiny incisions form a zigzag motif reminiscent of river waves. Yupon taps the motif twice to draw your attention, then mimes a bird flapping wings. You realize the carving is not random decoration. It is notation, an ancient cheat sheet mapping which holes mimic which avian call. Mainstream archaeological fact incoming. Caral's pelican bone flutes are among the oldest known musical instruments in the Americas, dated around 2600 BCE and tuned to replicate waterfowl vocalizations. Yupon gestures again, play. Panic sparks. Lip placement on a bone tube is trickier than whistling into a soda straw. But curiosity trumps fear. You press lower lip against smooth aperture, cover 3 holes with trembling fingers, and exhale. A shaky note squeaks out, part wounded seagull, part leaky kettle. Several musicians chuckle softly, not unkindly. Yupon corrects your grip, flattening first knuckle to seal the first hole fully. You try again. This time the note emerges clear, bright, and startlingly loud within the sunken chamber. Somewhere overhead, a real gull screeches an answer, perhaps annoyed at competition. The musicians resume playing, weaving your novice attempt into their improvisation like a weaver tucking a stray thread into pattern. The melody spirals upward, layering single sustained tones with quick trills that imitate swallow dives. You feel the plaza resonate, stones and Adobe humming sympathetic frequencies, chest cavity acting as echo chamber. It is both music and message. Notes bounce between pyramid faces, ricochet skyward, and disappear toward the Pacific cliffs. Some scholars of your era will later theorize that Caral's plazas functioned as giant resonators, focusing sound for ritual effect. Others argue geometry was incidental, not engineered. Historians are still debating this question. A drumbeat shakes the ground, subtle, distant, but insistent. You look up to Pyramid Mayor where 2 drummers take their stations high on a terrace, each poised over a double-headed high drum. Their mallets rise, fall, and pulse rolls down the pyramid's flank like thunder cracking open the day. The bone flutes pivot in response. Phrases stretch to fill negative space between drum strikes. The layering of wind and skin instruments births a soundscape simultaneously primal and sophisticated. No notation exists, only memory and muscle guiding phrase lengths. Yupon halts the ensemble with a raised elbow. He signals formation shift. Musicians file into 2 rows facing each other, leaving the central hearth open. From the shadows emerges a slender figure cloaked in crimson cotton. She carries a tall staff tipped with a condor feather array. As she steps into dawn light, you recognize her. Amy, one of Caral's priest astronomers. Instead of her usual star-mapping tools, she wields a flute far larger than the ones you have seen, constructed from the femur of an Andean condor. The bone is nearly the length of your forearm, burnished to a soft ivory glow. 2 carved snake heads adorn its ends, tongues meeting at the blowhole as if whispering secrets. Amy lifts the flute and releases a single note so low it tremors through plantar arches. You would never guess bone could produce such depth. A hollow bird femur moving as much air as a bassoon. The note rolls outward, fanning across plaza, climbing pyramid terraces, and dissolving into morning sky. It feels like the opening of a massive gate, a sonic portal welcoming sunlight through. You become aware of your own heartbeat syncing with the pulse of drums now throbbing in the background. 5 beats on, 2 beats off. An asymmetrical pattern mathematicians centuries ahead will label Fibonacci adjacent. As Amy sustains her basso foundation, the pelican flutes answer in delicate arpeggios, rising like thermals above condors' wing beats. Drummers shift tempo, aligning with the golden sliver of sun cresting Andes peaks. On exact moment of first light, drums pause, leaving only condor flute's final exhale. Then absolute silence. Into that hush, as if scripted, a real condor appears on the far thermal, silhouette slicing coriander green skyline. Musicians lower flutes reverently. You catch your breath, uncertain where performance ends and miracle begins. The silence breaks with applause, not handclaps, but feather fans slapped gently against chest and forearm, producing a rustling reminiscent of soft rain. This auditory applause is Caral's preferred method of acclaim, you learn. It keeps acoustic purity intact, preventing human cheering from muddying the sonic magic. Yupon bows, tapping flute end to forehead in thanks, and motions for you to follow as ensemble disperses toward a workshop nestled between 2 pyramids. The bone flute atelier, if you can call an open-air workspace an atelier, occupies a narrow courtyard shaded by reed mats. Tables carved from algarobo would hold rows of half-finished instruments. Pelican ulni, condor radii, deer tibiae, each sanded smooth. A young artisan named Coda welcomes you with a grin, wiping bone dust from cheeks. She hands you a newly drilled ulna and invites you to watch final finishing. Using a cactus thorn awl, she widens aperture edges by fractions of a millimeter, blowing through occasionally to test pitch. Every adjustment yields microtonal shifts. Coda listens like a jeweler appraising diamond clarity. You note the precision and mention lapping to thousandths of an inch. She raises eyebrow. Apparently artisans rely on ear alone, no calipers required. Coda demonstrates a clever technique. She fills finger holes with beeswax, then sunlight warms wax until it softens, enabling micro-shape corrections before setting. This wax acts both as tuner and protective sealant against moisture from breath. Important because Caral's desert dryness can crack unsealed bone within months. Obscure fact unlocked. Many archaeological specimens show traces of ancient wax, a detail early excavators misread as residue from funerary incense before spectrometry corrected the assumption. Coda passes finished flute back to you along with an obsidian scraper. She invites you to carve a personal symbol into the tube. You consider motifs, river waves, pyramid silhouette, maybe the galaxy spiral token Lakla gifted? In the end you choose 3 tiny dots in a row, representing the consecutive mornings you've awakened in Caral, each dot spaced slightly differently to mimic rhythm of drum pattern earlier. The scraper scars bone lightly. You hope your lines age into patina rather than fracture. When you finish, Coda nods approval and shows how to rub cactus resin along carved emblem to seal edges. The resin smells faintly of pine and honey. She then teaches cleaning ritual. After each performance, hold flute over burning sagebrush so smoke curls through bore, purging lingering moisture and unwanted spirits. You mimic motions. Mid-afternoon sprawls across the soup valley like a lazy cat, golden paws stretching farther with every passing minute. You wake from a light doze on your reed mat to find the world bathed in warm apricot, shadows short and bold, as if someone pumped extra contrast into reality. A faint tang of wood smoke drifts on the breeze. Your first clue that tonight will be anything but ordinary. Yesterday's bone flute symphony stitched music into the city's morning. Now Caral prepares to embroider the evening with fire. You stand, brushing sand from your shawl, and notice a procession assembling near the storage huts. At its head strides Cala, the stout elder cook who nearly burned your tongue off with chili stew, brandishing a long pole topped by a braided torch of dried tot-ora reeds. Behind her follows a chain of youngsters hauling baskets brimming with firewood. Warango branches crackled gray with desert age, algarobo limbs heavy with fragrant sap, and a surprise addition, bundles of desiccated seaweed recently traded from the coast. You fall into step, curiosity tugging like an eager llama. A runner named Lautu, still sweating from earlier pyramid hauling, jogs by and whispers the gossip. Tonight marks the half-river rite, a mid-season ceremony honoring the soup's dependable flow despite minimal rainfall. To show gratitude, residents kindle a series of ritual fires at strategic city points, 3 atop selected pyramids, 1 in the sunken circular plaza, and dozens of small hearths along the main avenue. Flames will speak to water with searing tongues of fragrant smoke, coaxing it to remain faithful through the coming dry weeks. Mainstream archaeologists interpret charcoal layers at these sites as proof of seasonal burn events dating thousands of years. Skeptics argue they represent communal cookouts. Historians are still debating this question. You volunteer to carry a bundle of algarobo branches. Their resinous scent clings to your palms, reminiscent of honey and warm earth. Behind you, 2 boys roll a barrel gourds full of crushed chili pods toward the plaza. You gasp. Are they seasoning the fires? One boy winks. Spirits like spice. You take him half seriously. After yesterday's condor flute miracle, there's little you're willing to dismiss. The procession turns toward Pyramid La Galeria. Shadows now elongate across plaza, painting crisp black parallelograms where pyramid sides meet ground. Amy, the priest astronomer, stands waiting at the base wearing a new mantle dyed the color of storm clouds. She carries a clay bowl filled with glowing embers, still alive from this morning's central hearth. Tradition forbids kindling sacred flames with sparks struck anew. They must be children of the city's constant heart fire. Amy raises her free hand to halt the group. She greets everyone with calm smile, then breaks into explanation for novices. You included of tonight's sequence. With staging, coal seeding, smoke reading, and ash offering, the wood grids atop each pyramid shall ignite first, forming lanterns visible to traveling traders miles away. Once those beacons blaze, smaller ground hearths light sequentially from west to east, mirroring the river's orientation. When all fires roar, a set of designated smoke readers interpret shapes riding the updraft, predicting weather shifts, fishing prospects, even romantic entanglements. Apparently smoke rarely minds its own business. You and half-dozen volunteers ascend switchback ramps of La Galeria carrying wood bundles. Up top, the summit platform smells of sun-baked adobe and faint salt, breeze still laced with Pacific memory. Workers have constructed a shallow pit ringed by stone slabs. Inside, neat pyramids of seaweed and warango already await. You add algarobo branches, noticing how the 3 woods layer aromas: sea brine, almond honey, and peppery sap. Amy arrives, nestling an ember cluster into the pile's heart using tongs carved from deer antler. Tiny sparks jump, hiss, and swallow dryness with greedy pops. She steps back, murmuring incantations beneath breath. Flames creep slow as if stretching after nap, then flash bright. First yellow, then a startling green-blue from mineral-rich seaweed. Gasps rise from onlookers below. One obscure fact you'll later recall. Certain coastal seaweeds contain copper salts, which color flame turquoise. This chemical stagecraft avant la lettre. Meanwhile, across plaza, flickers blossom atop pyramid mayor and pyramid menor almost simultaneously, each tinted distinctive hue depending on wood mix. The three distant torches form a triangular constellation hovering above desert floor, reflecting the real star triangles emerging overhead. Urban planning meets pyromancy. Descending ramps proves trickier in increasing darkness. You brace palm against wall, guiding steps by torchlight. At base, Annie waves you toward the sunken plaza. Time for ground hearth ignition. This plaza now hosts concentric circles of participants, each gripping reed torches waiting for central spark. Drummers pick a steady heartbeat again. Thump thump, pause, thump thump, pause. Mirroring pulse you swore belonged to city itself yesterday. In center stands Cala, wielding a long metal spoon, bronze, recent import rumors claim, stirring cauldron of viscous sap mixed with powdered chili and crushed achiote seeds. The plan, she explains with mischievous grin. Splash mixture into flames to create dramatic bursts. Ancient fireworks minus explosive hazard. Annie lowers a second ember bowl into the central pit. The moment embers touch prepared stack. Mainly algarobo this time. Heat explodes outward, bright and eager. Cala ladles one scoop of chili sap into blaze. A jet of scarlet sparks fountains upward, spiraling into inky twilight. Children shriek delight. Adults cheer, drums swell. You can almost taste the spice on wind, nostrils tingling. Torchbearers lean in, catching their wicks from central blaze, then peel off into predetermined lanes branching across plaza. You follow a squad assigned to Avenue of Echoes, named for acoustic bounce between Adobe walls. Each volunteer dips torch into smaller hearth, then jogs to next, dominoing flame eastward. Within minutes, the avenue shimmers like molten necklace, bead after bead alight. Smoke rises, thick and fragrant. A group of elder smoke readers stand atop low platforms, eyes narrowed, scanning plumes as though pages in skyborne codex. A reader named Reamery cups hands around mouth, projecting analysis. Serpent twist to the south. River bends soon. Water remainder safe. Applause ripples. Another elder spots a falcon shape, predicting plentiful anchovies tomorrow evening. A third describes twin spirals merging, an omen of upcoming marriage between two rival merchant clans. Crowd hums approval, though one merchant stage whispers doubt, citing my daughter still hates his sandals. You relish the mix of mysticism and small-town gossip. Caral may innovate hydraulics and astronomy, but matchmaking remains messy. Throughout ritual, you observe practical elements hidden inside spectacle. Fires provide nightly insect deterrent. Chilly smoke repels gnats that swarm irrigation ditches. Ash produced tonight will be mixed into field soil as potassium-rich fertilizer. Prehistoric compost plan. Even the turquoise fire's copper residue will later pigment textiles. Ritual and resource management spool around each other like twin cotton threads. While spectators cluster near hearths, you slip aside to catch breath beside a low wall. A jar of chilled chicha appears courtesy of Tupac the netmaker. Foam flecks his mustache as he explains more obscure trivia. Before Caral discovered seaweed-based fireworks, they used dried cactus spines soaked in salt water for quick spark effects. Less colorful, but still crowd-pleasing. Then archaeologists in your century will uncover fused spine clusters in ash layers, confirming pyrotechnic experimentation. Some propose these early special effects predate Chinese fireworks by millennia. Others scoff, attributing fused spines to accidental kitchen fires. Historians are still debating this question. A sudden hush falls. Annie climbs podium at plaza's edge, condor staff glowing amber in firewash. She spreads arms. Flames reflect in her mantle's embedded shell flecks, making her appear winged. She chants in measured cadence. Gratitude to river spirit, to ocean mother, to mountain father. Invocation for night winds to carry smoke truths to unseen allies. Listeners bow heads. You find yourself lowering gaze. 2. Feeling humble, toenails curling in warm dust. Upon final syllable, drummers release a rapid roll. Cala dashes forward, flinging last ladle of chili sap into central fire. Sparks erupt into a swirling pillar as high as a two-story house, briefly illuminating pyramid silhouettes like molten sculptures. Gasps unify the crowd. As sparks settle, Annie signals for silence. Embers glide upward, twilight melts into indigo, and a hush lifts over Caral that feels different from ordinary nightfall. More expectant, like the collective inhale before laughter, or the moment just before dice settle. You wake from a catnap, still enveloped in lingering smoke and seaweed perfume from the half-river right, to find a messenger squatting at the edge of your reed mat. He raps knuckles on the packed earth twice, a polite summons. Council's gathering, he whispers. Plaza north side. His eyes flick toward Pyramid Mayor, where a single torch burns low beside a rampway. Tonight, you discover, is council night. The regularly irregular session when canal overseers, astronomer priests, merchants and master farmers lock horns. Politely, but with all the fervor of rival condors, to hash out tomorrow's water schedule. Caral's fields drink from the river by rotation. Every plot, from cotton to chili, must know its appointed hour lest jealousy sprout faster than beans. But the council's agenda rarely stays on simple timetables. Policy, gossip, and cosmology swirl like three currents converging into rapids. You throw on shawl, tuck bone flute into belt, and follow messenger through dim alleys. Torches line Main Avenue, though flames have dwindled to coals. Ash piles from ritual fires smolder faintly, painting low clouds ember orange. Ahead, the plaza's northern quadrant glows under a sprawling canopy of stars. No moon tonight, perfect conditions for star talk. Stone benches form a broad semicircle around a central sand-smoothed hearth. 20-odd council members take seats. Calla the cook, apparently culinary genius, qualifies as logistics expert. Tupac the netmaker, Yupon the lead flutist, Annie the astronomer, elder farmers with hands like gnarled driftwood, and two traders whose cotton tunics bear purple snail dye. A statement outfit that screams, "I negotiate in bulk." At outer ring, dozens of townsfolk stand or sit cross-legged, invited observers but not yet vocal participants. You choose a spot beside Lautu, pyramid hauler turned debate enthusiast. He hands you a gourd of warm coconut water to keep night chill at bay. Drummers mark the session's start with 3 slow beats, each resonant enough to ripple through the soles of your feet. Annie rises, condor staff reflecting starlight. She begins not with terrestrial matters but with sky map. Venus currently glides near the western fish constellation. Mars, faint but rising, will peak at dawn. These alignments, she claims, bode mixed fortune. Steady trade winds but potential sandstorms along coastal routes. Merchants murmur, calculating shipment risks. Annie's report serves dual purpose: to frame debate within cosmic order, and to remind listeners that irrigation channels mirror heavenly pathways. First agenda item: distribution of water tomorrow morning. The soup's flow has been stable, but upstream minor flooding last week deposited silt, narrowing 2 canal mouths. Lauta's labor crew proposes partial closure of western split to dredge silt. Farmers downstream protest. Cotton buds are days from bloom and cannot afford reduced water. Calla, bowl of ash in lap, suggests a staggered schedule. Dredge at dawn's first light, finish by midday when evaporation spikes. She punctuates argument with pragmatic aside about how cooler morning temperatures let workers dig longer before heat exhaustion. An agronomist named Suma counters, cotton tolerates midday dryness better than chili seedlings. Prioritize chili fields first. A chili farmer leaps up, brandishing scarlet pod as prop, insisting his infants need gentle dawn water or they'll taste like indifferent gossip. Laughter ripples, tension softens. You marvel. Debates here deploy culinary humor as lubricating oil. Tupac raises hand, slender, calloused fingers stained by net dye, and introduces fog harvesters as potential supplementary moisture. He describes experiments along coastal bluffs. Nets woven of cactus fiber catch pre-dawn fog droplets, funneling them into clay jars. He proposes setting a line of fog nets uphill near canal headworks, producing modest extra water for chilly zones while dredging occurs. Obscure fact unlocked. Some modern archaeologists rediscover similar tech in coastal Peru 2 millennia later, yet Caral may have pioneered it. Council members lean forward, intrigued. Skeptics frown, arguing nets sap labor from canal maintenance. You watch the conversational tide rise. Topics spiral outward. Should imported snail dye shipments receive expedited water cooling to set pigment? How many llamas can valley pasture handle before overgrazing threatens channel embankments? At one point Cala tangents into stew viscosity relative to bean water weights, drawing groans but also nods. Culinary metrics translate surprisingly well into hydraulic math. Mid-debate, a runner bursts into plaza, panting. Word spreads. A caravan from Banduria, the rival valley town, approaches from south sooner than expected, arriving by dawn, not midday. Their leader reputedly intends to display latest gourd float design rumored to outperform Caral nets by catching double the anchovy load. Pride prickles. Tupac glances at his cotton twine, jaw tense. The council quickly votes to convene demonstration of local tech tomorrow noon to counter Banduria's boast. You sense competition fueling innovation. Amy stands again, pivoting discussion to astronomical calendar. Next 10-day increment sees Orion setting later, signaling start of secondary planting. She proposes canal realignment to send more flow eastward where new bean terraces await. An elder named Corey, the part-time architect raises structural concern. Shifting water increases erosion risk near newly discovered fault line running under Avenue of Echoes. Some archaeologists of your century will cite this moment as early urban engineering foresight. Others question authenticity of story, claiming embellishment in oral tradition. Historians are still debating this question. Argument intensifies. Voices rise, still courteous but sharpened by urgency. Overhead, a shooting star blazes, brief distraction. Amy seizes opportunity. Pauses debate, gestures skyward, invites everyone to breathe. Silence falls. Even River's distant murmur feels louder. She reminds council that Caral's strength lies in consensus hammered under starlight, not decrees delivered behind closed walls. She quotes an old proverb, "Water obeys slope, people obey story." Collective hum of agreement swells. Discussion resumes calmer. Final schedule emerges. Before sunrise, dredge western split with 2 crews. Redirect half of upstream flow via temporary sandbag levee to chilly terraces. Cotton growers accept midday irrigation in exchange for extended dusk watering tomorrow. Fog net experiment greenlit with volunteer labor from fishers who will benefit if Banduria gourds prove effective. Votes taken by handspan gesture. Palms skyward indicate support, and the plan passes nearly unanimous. Council now turns to headier question. Who holds ultimate authority to enforce decisions? Some propose formalizing a chief water master. Others argue rotating stewardship preserves balance. This is no small matter. Mainstream scholarly debate centers on whether Caral possessed centralized government, akin to later Andean states or operated via heterarchy. Interlocking elites sharing power. Tonight you witness argument in real time. Yupon, usually reserved, argues music guilds' role in ritual gives them moral sway to mediate disputes. Unpopular with merchants who fear flute bias. A chilly farmer retorts that water obeys shovels, not songs. Laughter, but tension glints. Calipound spoon on bowl clang, and offers compromise. Create council seal carved into spondylus shell. Each guild holds matching cord with knot pattern. Decisions require 3 chords to unlock seal, ensuring coalition. Applause breaks. Traders love multi-signature security. Musicians shrug satisfied. Farmers nod. Motion adopted. You witness proto-bureaucracy birthed beneath constellations. An observer calls from sidelines, a teenager, voice cracking, holding small stone tablet etched with column of dots. He represents youth apprentices, proposes allowing them non-voting seat to learn council protocols. Debate glances mild. Elders exchange amused looks. Amy champions idea as cosmic investment. Unanimous nods. The boy beams. You mark moment. Early civic education wins starlight approval. Hours pass. Embers in central hearth fade to pink pearls. Argument winnows to minutiae. Quotas for reed harvest, festival scheduling. Ratifying new weight standard for cotton skeins. Eventually drummers sound single deep note, session close. Counselors rise, stretch. Many will head straight to canal headworks to start dredging before dawn heat. But some, fueled by adrenaline and starshine, linger for side debates. Tupac and the Banduria caravan rumor swirl spur friendly strategizing. Corey unrolls tethered reed. Dawn is still a rumor when someone nudges your shoulder and murmurs. Tide's in. You surface from sleep with sand-crusted lashes and the lingering taste of council night coca leaf on your tongue. The sky above Caral hasn't yet decided on a color, but the eastern horizon hints at dilute apricot. All around you, silhouettes bustle toward the river landing, torches flickering like fireflies trying to beat sunrise. Today you are shipping out, quite literally, because the sea is calling, and sailors never let dawn's window close without a fight. You pad toward the soup's bank where reed rafts, sleek as basking seals, crowd a makeshift dock. Each craft resembles a bundle of oversized wheat stalks, lashed tighter than a gossip circle and tapered at both ends into elegant curls that rise above the waterline. Sea spray has bleached the top reeds pale gold. Lower layers stay mossy green from perpetual damp. Fishnet floats made from hollow gourds bob alongside, clinking like musical maracas each time a raft nudges its neighbor. A breath of salt reaches you this far inland. Reminder that the Pacific awaits just beyond those dune-stippled bluffs. Tupac, still sporting residue of fognet experiments on his tunic, waves you over and gifts you a length of braided cotton cord. Wrist loop, he instructs, so we can fish you out if you fall. The joke lands somewhere between comforting and unsettling, but you knot the cord anyway, adding it to your growing collection of Caral friendship devices. A grizzled mariner named Orko approaches, his beard flecked with dried river silt, eyes bright as fish scales under moonlight. He is captain of the raft-winged anchovy, a name you decide is either adorable or threatening depending on meal choices. He checks cargo. Baskets of chili, rolls of cotton thread, small jars of algarobo syrup, and a few sealed gourds filled with last night's ritual ash, tribute from river folk to ocean gods. Finally, a hefty sack of spondylus shells glows orange even in half-light. Proof Caral never sails empty-handed. You step aboard, feet sinking slightly into springy reed deck. Feels less like solid floor and more like standing on a sun-warmed trampoline. Sailors hurry past, securing bundles under cross cables, tying gourds along sides to serve as outriggers. Mainstream historical fact: excavations at Aspero, Caral's coastal satellite, reveal impressions of similar rafts, confirming maritime trade formed the early highway for Andean exchange networks long before mountain roads. One sailor jokes the reeds are water birds who forgot to fly, so humans convinced them to swim instead. A conch horn blares, deep and resonant, scattering gulls from their perch on a distant sandspit. Crews push poles against the dock, and the winged anchovy glides into gentle current, joining a caravan of 5 rafts. The river's very own parade, banners invisible but intentions proud. Cool mist kisses your cheeks, stinging slightly where yesterday's wind-blown sand left micro-scratches. Salt settles on lips. You lick instinctively and cough at brine intensity. Orko laughs, handing you a strip of dried warango bark to chew. Good for thirst, he claims. It tastes oddly like unsweetened pine gum. The soup carries you toward sea at an unhurried pace, threading between canal mouths and cotton terraces still shadowed. Farmers wave with spades in hand. Children race along banks yelling, "Bring back shark's teeth." Apparently tooth necklaces are playground status symbols. The river widens, current quickens. Reeds along banks bow as if offering silent blessing. In your mind, you replay Amy's star lecture. Mercury's sliver over twin crabs' horns marks dredging end. But here on water, the only sign you need is the iridescent shimmer ahead where freshwater meets tidal backwash. At confluence, smell shifts dramatically. Earthy river musk replaced by metallic ocean scent layered with dying kelp perfume. Waves begin to roll under hull. Reed deck rises and falls like a giant lung. Orko orders cotton sail unfurled. A creamy rectangle patched from recycled tunics, catching breeze with a satisfying pop. Obscure tidbit: Caral sailors coat sails in diluted algarobo syrup, then let them dry. Sugar crust stiffens weave and repels splashing water. Modern textile chemists would admire the hack, though sugar-seeking insects might disagree. Once past sandbar guardians, the Pacific reveals herself in full. She's not calm today. Swells stack like staircases leading somewhere unsettling. Yet the rafts glide gracefully, bows cutting water with minimal spray. Orko assigns roles. You get lookout duty on bow perch, mostly ceremonial but thrilling. As sun climbs, copper discs scorching cloudless blue, you spot dark fins slicing surface parallel to fleet. Just dolphins, calls stern sailor, but grin lines fail to hide reverence. Every rolling fin accompanied by silver-backed anchovy schools fleeing shallow arcs, turning ocean into mirrored confetti. Sailors begin their tales, because no voyage is official until someone references a monster. Orko's favorite yarn features a shark with jade eyes, so cunning it pretends to be driftwood until a sailor hops on for rest. Another man counters with story of fog so thick it whispers directions in your dead grandmother's voice. Follow it and you'll beach on invisible island of bone-white crabs. Listeners groan, request new material, but you secretly hope for jade-eyed shark cameo. They also share practical intelligence disguised as gossip. Where Humboldt Current rips hardest, how to read guano streaks on cliffs to locate fertile fishing grounds, which coastal lagoons host freshwater springs for refill. Mainstream knowledge drop. These mariners maintain mental charts centuries older than any Inca quipu map, enabling long-distance exchange from Ecuador to Chile. Yet there is academic bickering. Some scholars argue trade objects reached Caral via down-the-line handoffs, not direct voyages. Historians are still debating this question. Orko scoffs at such skepticism, slapping mast affectionately. Waves are shorter than rumors. Mid-morning heat intensifies. Canvas awnings rigged between cargo stacks provide patchy shade. Sailors dab algarobo syrup on nose tips to reduce sunburn, sticky but effective, and doubles as midday snack when licked. You are invited to gut anchovies freshly scooped with scoop net. The process is hypnotic. Slice belly with obsidian shard. Flick entrails overboard where gulls scavenge midair. One sailor swears gull droppings on deck foretell lottery-worthy luck. Another says it just means extra scrubbing later. Around noon the fleet halts near a rocky outcrop jutting from water like the broken tusk of a sea leviathan. Waves crash white froth against dark stone. Cormorants circle overhead, complaining loudly. Here Orko wants to test new gourd float design before Banduria merchants flaunt theirs. Tupac's fognet volunteers lash a row of gourds to a weighted reed line, forming buoy array. Cotton nets attach beneath, designed to suspend in anchovy sweet spot depth. You help tie knots, fingers sticky with syrup and fish oil. Orko times deployment to coincide with tide pull. Nets billow underwater like gentle parachutes. While waiting for catch, crew swims to rock to collect mussels. Water is colder than you expect. Humboldt Current shows no mercy. You surface gasping, skin tingling electric. On rock shelf you notice starfish clusters, bright orange fractals against basalt. Remembering earlier gift, you pry one loose, still living, and quickly reconsider theft. You return it, whispering apology. A sailor teases that starfish eat disobedient fingers. You wiggle digits nervously. Obscure tidbit. Some Caral mariners use dried starfish as primitive magnetic compass substitute, believing arms align with prevailing currents when floated in shallow dish. No one has proven efficacy, but belief keeps starfish trade brisk. Back aboard. Nets heave full earlier than expected. Silver torrent of anchovies wriggling as teams haul lines. Rafts rock with sudden weight. You help dump fish into reed troughs where salt and chili dust already wait. Quick curing on deck means less spoilage inland. Salty brine drips through reed floor, feeding microecosystem of hitchhiking barnacles. So efficient, so messy. An afternoon lull allows story exchange tradition. Each voyager must offer new tale or skill demonstration. You choose bone flute piece, a gentle riff reminiscent of Condor Cave ghost note attempt. Notes scatter across waves. Dolphins surface, seeming to listen. Crew claps, awarding you honorary title Wind Breather. Orko follows with rope knot speed challenge, tying complex loop around mast and blink. A younger sailor named Amaru attempts juggling 3 fish. Second toss goes rogue, flopping onto deck and sliding into sea. sparking laughter and gull frenzy. Heat breaks when cloud bank creeps from horizon, turning sky pewter. Wind shifts cooler, sails billow sharply. Orko decides to escort caravan to small inlet for shelter while storm potential assessed. Channel in trance. Morning slips over the soup valley wearing a gauzy veil of mist, the sort that softens pyramid edges and gives Adobe walls a dreamy watercolor bleed. You sit cross-legged on your reed mat, working salt crystals from last night's voyage out of your hair, when a small squad of children barrels past, giggling and flinging handfuls of dried bean pods like confetti. One shell smacks your shoulder and explodes in a gentle pop. Beans skitter everywhere. The pint-sized culprit grins back. Planting day! Hurry or the sand wins. There's no truer mantra in Caral agriculture. Hesitate, and the desert reclaims every furrow. You join the assembling workforce moving toward fields just east of the city, where ribbons of greenery slice through tawny dunes like emerald stitches. The canal dredging crew, still smeared with mud from last night's heroics, now doubles as irrigation managers. They've erected simple wooden sluice gates, nothing more than mesquite planks held by clay wedges, yet those gates dictate life or famine. Tupac trots by, tossing you a gourd dipper. Water levels perfect. Just keep seeds happy. We're on chilly duty after midsun. He points to plots farther uphill where delicate seedlings tremble in downslope breeze. You nod, tucking dipper into belt beside bone flute. Multi-tool day, apparently. Your first assignment. Planting gourds, a crop Caral values not for soup but for engineering. Float nets, hold liquids, even form makeshift helmets for overzealous children. Elder farmer Suma kneels at field edge, slicing furrows with a stone dibber whose tip glints obsidian. She presses it into loamy canal silt mixture, wiggles to widen, and flicks wrist to form pocket. An elegant choreography honed over decades. You mimic motions, surprising yourself with passable dexterity. Into each pocket goes a fistful of greenish sand-coated gourd seeds. They're pre-soaked in river water laced with crushed spondylus to infuse ocean courage. Suma explains. Whether minerals add nutrients or poetry, you're unsure, but concept tastes hopeful. Mainstream historical note. Caral farmers pioneered mixed cropping lanes, alternating rows of tall gourds with low-growing beans to create microclimates, reduce evapotranspiration, and fix nitrogen in barren soil. Modern agronomists call it polyculture. Here it's just grandmother wisdom. You watch as Suma sprinkles a thin layer of algarobo ash atop seeds, then pats soil lightly. Ash keeps beetles shy, she says, and gives little ones a warm blanket. She winks at termite mound that dares inch close. Apparently ash works on psychological pests too. Further down the plot, a team tackles beans. They use a rhythm chant. Stamp, dig, drop, sing, cover. Each verb syncs with foot or hand motion, turning planting into communal dance. Lyrics describe rivers flirting with clouds, beans tickling gourd's feet, and desert sun falling hopelessly in love with cotton blossoms. Obscure trivia. Later scribes will record that Caral songs contain built-in seed-spreading instructions. Archaeomusicologists centuries ahead will identify certain melodic intervals as mnemonic devices for row spacing. Whether serendipity or design, historians are still debating this question. Water is released in timed pulses from primary canal. Wooden chutes redirect flow into narrow feeder ditches lined with discarded reed mats, cheap liner preventing seepage. As water snakes between rows, sand drinks greedily, darker streak trailing like ink beneath parchment. You squat, trailing fingers. Temperature surprises, cool, almost mountain cold. Suma nods. Snowmelt still fresh. She reminds everyone that glaciers gift this valley its pulse. A shiver runs through crowd at thought of mountain spirits withholding future melt. Someone jokes about bribing them with chilly perfume. Laughter dissolves unease but not entirely. Mid-morning sun gains bite. Cotton-clad shoulders glisten with sweat. Reed hats bloom across workforce like migrating mushrooms. Kala arrives to deliver breakfast. Mashed sweet potato patties laced with anchovy bits and dusted with powdered chili ash. She claims ash binds moisture, keeping patties soft. You can't resist mental note. Caral's culinary chemistry continues to outrun some modern sandwich shops. While chewing, you overhear two irrigation apprentices argue measurement units. One advocates forearm length, standard for row spacing. The other prefers 12 bean stack. Their debate spirals until a passing astronomer quips they should adopt star length, roughly 3 Orion belts end to end, provoking affectionate groans. Metrology, it seems, is universal headache. After break, focus shifts to canal maintenance. You volunteer for silt patrol, dragging a wicker scoop net along canal bottom to dredge sediment into baskets. Mud squelches between toes. Cool relief from sun, though smell evokes fishy compost. Corey, the architect, surveys bank reinforcement, chalking serpent motifs where hairline cracks appear, early warning signals he'd flagged in council. Today he tests new stabilization technique, weaving young mesquite branches horizontally into embankment face, then coating with Adobe slurry containing mica flecks for reflection. He claims brightness scares burrowing rodents. Some farmers scoff, others cheer innovation. Whether rodent scare glow works or simply looks festive, historians will eventually install motion cameras on recreated canal, but results remain inconclusive, fueling lectures titled Glitter versus Gophers. By midday, heat turns oppressive. Workers retreat to shade cloth stretched over nearby storage hut. There, apprentices spread out bowls of experimental seed varieties. Ivory-striped beans rumored imported from north, tiny black-eyed peas swapped with Highland traders, and a curious red-flecked gourd seed that tinges water pink when soaked. Botanist merchant duo leads taste test of roasted seed coatings, early snack marketing. They poll crowd for flavor feedback, earthy, nutty, like licking old pottery. You drop polite, complex review. The duo logs responses on quipu chords. Each knot spacing corresponds to positive or negative sentiment. Early consumer research meets textile database. Now breezes pick up, carrying fine dust. Planting must pause. Suma issues linen face covers. While sandblasted wait, she shares legend of first gourd. A desert maiden who hollowed heart to store rain tears, so drought wouldn't starve cactus. The story blends heartbreak and engineering elegantly. Children listening hold seed packets closer, as if hugging future gourds alive. You reflect how myths here function as operating manuals veiled in romance. Wind relents. Planting resumes with chilly seedlings. This requires surgical delicacy, roots shallow, stems fragile. You use sharpened deerbone dibber, twisting just enough cavity depth. Nestling seedling, firming soil collar gently. A young girl corrects your wrist angle. She's 8 yet wields plant like porcelain. She explains chilly aroma Dieter's weevils from beans, but lures pollinator wasps beneficial for gourds. Integrated pest management centuries early. You salute her ecological mastery. She shrugs, presumably thinking you're bit slow. Time for water rotation. Upstream workers remove clay wedge at new gate. Current whooshes, glittering mirror streak under noonday blaze. Irrigation overseer counts heartbeats to calibrate flow, then reinserts wedge, eyeballing depth at precise sandal strap mark. Someday hydraulic engineers with laser sensors will marvel at such precision achieved by ear and instinct. You slosh downstream to ensure distribution even, adjusting small leaf dams where water lingers. Sand sizzles under sols. Each splash lifts microcloud of steam. Mid-afternoon break occurs beneath a stand of warango trees whose roots plunge deep enough to tap aquifers. Shade is dense, smell resinous. Two-pack arrives boasting fognet yield. Half jar of pristine condensation water gathered overnight. He pours everyone a mouthful cool, mineral sweet. Farmers applaud proof of concept. Banduria visitors, observing with folded arms, exchange respectful nods. Friendly rivalry pushes boundaries yet again. Obscure nugget. Centuries later, coastal communities will resurrect fog harvesting nets using plastic mesh. Caral's cactus fiber version arguably more biodegradable. Conversation turns to seed storage issues. Hotter seasons invite weevil infestations. Corey proposes subterranean silo chambers lined with crushed chili layer. The spice suffocates eggs. A trader counters cost of chili better spent on marine trade. Debate simmers until an elder recounts year when weevils devoured half-bean stores. Chili-lined gourds only stash that survived. The crowd sides with caution. Plan greenlit. Decision recorded on shell seal cord requiring 3 guild approvals. Governance system born yesterday now fully operational. You witness bureaucracy sprout as quickly as chili roots. Late afternoon. Planting concludes. Workers gather. You wake in the thin gray hush that divides night from dawn. Feeling the air itself pause, as though the desert has forgotten its own breathing. Yesterday's seed songs still hum behind your eardrums, but a different melody gnaws at the edge of hearing. An off-key note, distant yet insistent, the way a pot rattles just before it boils over. Before your eyes even adjust, you sense trouble coming up the valley. Word travels faster than the soup's current. Banduria's caravans are inbound, and rumor clings to them like burrs. New trade alliances, accusations of sabotage, even whispers that they have consulted sky spirits without invitation. You sling your shawl across shoulders, knot your bone flute at the belt, and join the stream of half-awake citizens already making for the main plaza. Everyone walks quieter than usual, voices bandaged by caution. On the plaza's northern edge, council stones gleam with first light. Amy stands there, condor staff angled downward like a grounded lightning bolt. Corey the architect paces tight circles, muttering seismic probabilities. Two-pack knots and unknots spare net twine, a habit he only indulges when nerves chew on him. Calla frowns into her stew pot, tasting broth for bitterness that exists only in her imagination. All of them face south, toward the dust plume that announces the arrival of Banduria's envoy. The plume unfurls into shapes. 6 llamas draped in indigo blankets, a pair of adolescent standard-bearers juggling flags embroidered with stylized spirals, and at the head Ilapa, Banduria's silver-tongued mediator, decked in ear-spools of turquoise the size of small saucers. Behind them rumble reed travois piled with lattice-crated goods, hidden under dye-cloths. The travelers move with just enough swagger to suggest confidence and just enough restraint to claim courtesy. As they enter the plaza, Ilapa bows dramatically, words sweet as algarobo syrup. Honored guardians of Caral, he calls. We bring you gifts of crystal salt and news of rivers. He produces a polished stone idol, 2 serpents knotted together, their bodies incised with tributary lines that glisten in the sun. A hush spreads. The carving is beautiful, but the subtle symbolism is louder. 2 rivers entwining can nourish or strangle, depending on who controls their flow. Amy steps forward, returns the bow at half the depth, diplomatic equilibrium. She thanks Ilapa, gestures to Calla, who places a bowl of fresh chili bean stew at the envoy's feet. Carol's sharp-flavored welcome. Ilapa tastes 1 spoonful, smiling as though the spice is pleasant. His eyes water anyway. Fiery hospitality, he quips. Formalities complete, the council assembles on stone benches ringed around a central hearth. Citizens cluster behind in tightening circles. Even children sense pivot points in history. Bone flute players settle along the periphery, flutes lowered like sheathed blades. 1 stray dog skulks, tail twitching. The air smells of cold ash, dried seaweed, and the kind of expectation that makes mouths dry. Ilapa begins with compliments. Caral's canals shimmer like silver snakes. Its cotton shines like morning cloud belly. Its chili has courage, but pivots quickly. Banduria has discovered a vast inland salt spring, he says, able to supply both valleys fish pickling for generations. In exchange for sharing rights and rights, Banduria asks only for exclusive access to the coastal lagoon presently fished by Caral's nets. A fair river for a fair sea, he says. Murmurs ripple. Caral fishermen bristle. 2 packs twine twists faster. A merchant stands, arguing the lagoon's currents fatten anchovies, vital to city diet. Ilapa counters with a sealed gourd containing paper-thin fish slices preserved in salt. Boasts they travel halfway to the Andes without spoilage. He breaks 1 slice, passes pieces around. The flavor, surprisingly lush, stirs the crowd. Suma the farmer lifts a hand, quiet authority, and asks about the water draw needed for salt fields. Ilapa smiles, says rainfall suffices. You watch his gaze flick right. A tell. In Soup's desert, rainfall may kiss ground but rarely stays for tea. Everyone knows that. Skepticism thickens. The council is about to respond when a breathless messenger arrives, clay dust caked to his legs. The western split canal levee has burst, water pouring into a dead arroyo. Shouts erupt. Alapa places a palm on his indigo-dyed chest. Bandurria volunteers are already near. Coincidence of timing, I swear. Coincidence tastes like underripe lucuma, sour with something unspoken. Amy's eyes flash. She orders an investigation and deputizes you, Tupac, Corey, and 2 young apprentices. You sprint down the canal path, sandals kicking up desperate grit. Desert heat hasn't bloomed yet, but tension sweats through linen regardless. You reach the levee. 1 clay wedge missing, water gushing in frothy tantrum. Tupac flings himself waist-deep, shoving a reed mat against breach while others slam sandbags. Your job is footprints. They lead south, half erased by retreating heels. You find a strip of cotton cord snagged on a thorny mesquite shrub. Bandurria weave pattern unmistakable. Too convenient? Evidence sometimes travels dressed as bait. By the time levee plug holds, sun has edged higher. You race back, heart-pumping brackish mixture of adrenaline and suspicion. In the plaza, negotiations teeter on a fulcrum. Alapa's volunteers display readiness to help. Ropes coiled, faces earnest. Corey whispers findings. Council members confer. Decision. Accept help to mend levee, snare or test. And postpone lagoon talk until water salvage finishes. Alapa masks annoyance with accommodating grin. Teams mobilize. Caral and Bandurria labor shoulder to shoulder, seeding awkward camaraderie. You direct a mixed crew stacking fresh Adobe bricks along levee. As you work, a Bandurria mason named Chaska strikes up conversation. She complains inter-valley rivalry drains resources. You sense genuine fatigue behind her words. Yet when you mention suspicion of sabotage, she arches brow. Maybe Third Valley stirs pot. She invokes Aspero, the coastal site with booming trade. Stories swirl that Aspero agents profit from keeping inland centers at each other's throats, slipping bribes like seeds in sandy soil. Historians of your century will later dredge Aspero's harbor and find cargo seals of both valleys side by side, fueling debate. Competition or brokerage? Historians are still debating this question. At midday, levee stands secure. Exhausted workers drip sweat. Clay dust cakes calves like new skin. Alapa claps hands, praising collective effort, but tension remains. Tupac points out saboteur left no shoe prints on North Bank where Caral patrols. Sabotage likely came from South Entry, Bandurria side. Alapa deflects. Maybe wayward herdsmen? Maybe playful children? Excuses taste thin. Council reconvenes under mesquite canopy for shade. Kala circulates sweet potato tea to soothe throats. You present evidence, cord, footprints. Alapa counters with witness testimony. One of his porters saw a hooded figure fleeing east, maybe a Sparrow spy. Debate spins like dust devil. Amy cuts through, suggesting joint patrols on major canal splits for 2 lunar cycles. Whoever tampers next reveals allegiance. She pairs Caral guard with Bandurria guard, symbolic rope tying their waists. If sabotage occurs, both answer. Alapa nods slowly. He can't refuse without appearing guilty. You volunteer for first patrol along with Chaska. Evening approaches. Patrol assignment begins at serpent-etched pillar marking valley midpoint. Moon rises. Its waxing gibbous, silver coin pinned to cobalt cloth. Chaska hums a tune, low, steady. You match stride, listening for canal murmur under cricket choir. After an hour, you spy movement. A cloaked form crouched at subsidiary sluice. You and Chaska rush. Figure flees into tall desert grass. Giving chase, you nearly collide with reed baskets stashed behind dune. Inside, obsidian blades, rope, clay jars of tar. Sabotage kit. No valley emblem visible. Whoever orchestrates mischief wants blame flexible. You and Chaska haul evidence to campfire where dual patrols debrief. Bandurria guards bristle. One accuses Caral staging frame-up. Caral guard flares back. Chaska steps between, brandishing discovered obsidian blade, pointing out flaking style atypical for either valley's artisanship. She suggests a sparrow origin. Argument cools into wary puzzlement. Next day, council inspects contraband. Obsidian's chemical signature, tiny mica flecks, resembles highland quarry both valleys trade from but rarely shaped this way. Scholars centuries later will confirm blade style matches. Mid-afternoon sunlight pours over Caral like molten brass, glinting off mica-flecked Adobe and turning every canal into a ribbon of white glare. The valley hums with a confident rhythm these days. Joint patrols pace the levees, Banduria salt traders haggle beside Caral cotton vendors, and children chant new verses that rhyme serpents with silt to commemorate the Twin Idol Treaty. It feels, for once, as though the desert has accepted human pulse as its own heartbeat. So when the Soup River's murmur fades, first to a whisper, then to nothing at all, no one notices at first. You're reclined beneath a warango, recording days' irrigation readings on a knotted cord, half listening to bone flute practice drifting from the plaza. A faint hollowness slides through the air, like someone drew breath from an enormous bottle, but your ears dismiss it as wind in distant dunes. It's Cala's panicked shout that snaps your gaze to the canal. Water that should be rippling against reeds now lies glass still, surface tension glistening like fish skin seconds before rigor mortis. Then, as if a plug unstoppered the earth, the water level shudders downward. You sprint to the canal mouth where Tupac, Suma, and 2 Banduria volunteers already stand, eyes fixed upstream. The river itself, beyond the headworks gate, is shrinking before your eyes, volume curling back as though sucked uphill by invisible siphon. Bits of flotsam, a cotton bowl, a broken gourd, an unlucky anchovy, clatter against drying stones. Within minutes, rocks that haven't felt sun in decades broil under scorching air. The soup, once silver artery, is coughing itself dry. Panic, at first, whispers rather than screams. Merchants abandon stalls to fetch elders. Farmers toss dibbers into half-planted rows. Musicians lower flutes mid-phrase, notes drooping unfinished at their lips. Annie arrives, storm cloud mantle flapping, condor staff tapping an anxious staccato against the canal stones. She orders scouts upriver. Corey instructs workers to seal gates to conserve what little remains in feeder ditches, and Cala physically blocks children from splashing in shrinking pools. Snake nests awaken when river mud cracks. You volunteer for the Northern Scout Party. 7 of you jog along dusty riverbed, feet slipping where algae still slime the rocks. The sound of your own sandals echoes like drumming in a mausoleum. A couple kilometers upstream, you encounter dead fish gasping in ankle-deep puddles, their scales flashing frantic Morse code. Suma sighs. She clutches a fish, murmurs apology, sets it back gently. At the next bend, you find the river's memory, wet sand, quick drying. Then nothing but stones bleaching in sun. It's as abrupt as someone carving canyon across timeline. Here wet, there dry. No landslide dam, no rival valley barricade, just absence. Mainstream fact: geologists note Andean rivers can disappear underground through porous fault lines after seismic shifts, rerouting flow overnight. Yet Caral has never witnessed such vanishing this far downstream. Scholars centuries later will unearth sedimentary clue suggesting minor quake the night before, but cause remains contested. Historians are still debating this question. Your party splits. 2 climb ridge to search for diverted channel. Others follow trickle north. You and Annie kneel at the final moist patch, studying sediment. She sniffs air, claims faint sulfur note. An underground fissure may have opened, swallowing river into cavern system. You ask how long to reroute water, her shoulders droop. If fissure deep, maybe seasons. If God's merciful, maybe days. Back in Caral, atmosphere teeters between frenzy and forced optimism. Council convenes in emergency session. Lantern gourds already lit though sun still high. Symbolic attempt to brighten gloom. Cala distributes salted anchovies chilled in leftover fognet water, because hungry minds panic louder. Corey sketches potential dam upstream, but Tupac notes no water left to dam. A Banduria envoy suggests tapping salt spring aquifer. Audible scoffs remind him that brine kills beans. Annie proposes immediate rationing, prioritizing drinking water, next chili seedlings, then cotton, gourds, beans. Farmers accept hierarchy reluctantly. Cotton weavers protest, claiming nets feed valley. An argument crackles until a child coughs from thirst outside council ring. Debate collapses. Rationing passes. Amy Mark's decision on council shell seal. Cords tightened like a belt around a shrinking belly. Night descends with desert cruelty. Temperature plummets yet thirst intensifies. Fog nets unfurl along ridge, but breeze too warm to condense vapor. You join patrol near desiccated riverbed, digging shallow pits in hope of seepage. Instead, you find dried crayfish cracking like pottery shards. Suma wraps one in cotton cloth to show children what used to live beneath the surface. Around midnight, a low tremor ripples ground. Nothing major, yet morale cracks louder. Cory cups ear to earth, declares fault line shifting again. That matches geological theory centuries later, microquakes redirecting subterranean channels. Whether triggered by moon phase tidal pull or weight of canal water, scientists still debate. You just feel helpless. Second day dawns, river still silent. Merchants pack up shells. No water, no dye baths. Fishermen inspect nets drying stiff in sun. Talk of relocating to coastal Espero bubbles. Rival valleys smell weakness. Alapa appears with small escort, offers convoy to Salt Spring for emergency brine-to-fresh distillation technique. Still experimental. Council thanks him, but suspicion needles, they recall levee sabotage. Desperation seeds innovation. Tupac builds prototype water ladder. Angled wooden slats directing brackish seep from canal edges into clay jars drop by drop. Suma experiments with mulching seedlings using shredded reed to trap night dew. Kala invents broth thickened with cactus pulp that supplies electrolytes with minimal water. Some methods stick, others slog into failure. Amid scrambling, art persists. The Bone Flute Ensemble decides to host River Memory Vigil. At dusk, musicians gather in sunken plaza, now eerily dry. They play slow melodies mimicking ripple rhythms. Citizens bring jars of canal silt, pouring lines across plaza floor to map vanished tributaries. You add a jar of fognet condensation, dribbling it over bone flute carving. Tiny gesture of hope. One obscure fact. Archaeomusicologists millennia later will discover flutes tuned to lower pitch during drought periods, perhaps to mimic forlorn river echoes. Tonight you witness that tuning shift in real time. Flutes moan deeper, haunting. During vigil, smoke readers cast powdered chili into small hearths, watching plumes twist toward starpeck sky. They report shapes of coiled spring, omen of water returning under spiral path. Skeptics whisper placebo, yet even illusions hydrate morale. Third day, cracks snake through canal beds. Farmers pulse between anger and despair. A Banduria messenger arrives with clay jars of brine water filtered through algarobo charcoal. Experimental freshening method. It's drinkable but faintly metallic. Council accepts delivery, distributes to children and elders first. This small charity slacks rivalry tension. Yet rumors swirl. Espero boats sighted near lagoon, maybe planning takeover now that Caral's fishermen idle. You volunteer for coastal mission. Seek Espero, barter for fish and water or negotiate non-aggression. Tupac, Chaska, and 2 sailors join. You ride reed raft down Ghost River, dragging along sandbars until reach ocean. Waves greet with oblivious roar. Salt water mocks thirst. Coastal fog thick enough to soak shawls but not fill jars quickly. At Espero's harbor you find bustle. Raiders? No, just traders unloading sea lion hides. Their leader, Yana, hears of river silence, offers seawater distilled through solar still prototypes. Shallow clay pans covered in sailcloth. Sun evaporates water, condenses on underside, drips into gourds. Output small but pure. She'll share designs if Caral reciprocates with cotton thread. You seal deal via handshake and spiral knot cord entries. Treaty edges expand again. Solar stills prove slow. Back in Caral, each yields a gourd daily, symbolic sip. Meanwhile, canal patrols discover trickle upstream. Water seeping from Fisher side channel, just fingertips deep. Workers race to dig diversion trench. Cory devises temporary reed pipe siphon. Suck mouthful of muddy water. Spit. Then water flows downhill into reservoir pit. First puddle forms. People cheer though it's barely enough to rinse hands. Fourth day dusk. Sudden windstorm hurls sand across valley, burying half-planted chili rows. Disaster compounding disaster. Yet storm's tail drags coastal moisture inland. You wake to a sky the color of tarnished bronze. A dawn so sluggish it seems reluctant to crawl over the dunes that now hunch like silent spectators around Caral. Yesterday the river's voice came back, splashy and apologetic. But today it gurgles only in shallow pockets, as if embarrassed by how quickly it almost abandoned you. The air smells of dry silt, wood smoke, and something sharper, ozone, maybe, or the faint metallic bite of panic people are struggling not to name. Nobody admits it aloud, yet you can read it in their shortened greetings and in the way they glance, too often, toward the dunes that once looked like friends and now look like fences. Your first real sign of danger is absence. Absence of bone flute warm UPS drifting across the plaza. Absence of Tupac whistling while he checks sluice gates. Absence of children trading shell chips near Cala's kitchen hearth. A whisper flicks from ear to ear. The coastal traders never arrived last night. You try to shrug it off. Maybe they camped by the lagoon to escape sandflies, but the shrug sticks halfway. Caravans are the arteries of Caral. When they stop pulsing, the city feels its own heartbeat falter. Breakfast is watered-down bean mash that tastes like unfinished sentences. Cala confesses supplies of dried fish are dwindling faster than she can invent substitutes. We're secure for another moon, she assures you, but she won't meet your eyes when she says it. Across the hearth, Suma toys with a gourd of chili seeds she should have planted yesterday, murmuring that germination rates are slipping with every hotter dawn. You offer to help her reseed. She shakes her head. Might be time to carry them further upriver, she says. The phrase carry them lands heavier than it should. Mid-morning, a dust storm swaggering up the valley slaps the pyramid walls hard enough to shake loose a trickle of mica glitter that floats like doomed confetti. Corey, ever vigilant, paces the base of Pyramid Mayor marking fresh fissures with red pigment so tomorrow's cracks won't blend with today's. He jokes about giving the pyramid henna tattoos, yet his laugh snaps in the middle. You help him smear clay into deepest gaps while sand pricks your eyelids and makes every breath feel itchy. After the storm, Amy calls an emergency council beneath a hastily pitched reed awning. Everyone arrives coated in dust, hair clumped, eyes reddened. She spreads star charts across a low table and speaks in the measured tone you once mistook for calm and now recognize as deliberate ballast against brooding dread. Conjunctions are misbehaving, she says, eclipses landing out of phase, constellations drifting an entire finger width between nights. Either the sky is confused, she says, or we are reading with eyes too heavy. Nobody laughs, but the message is clear. Celestial cues that guided planting, trade, and ritual are wobbling like a broken compass. Tupac reports a stranger anomaly. Upstream scouts found the river's banks clawed by fresh gullies as though water had whipped sideways in the night, carving miniature canyons before vanishing underground again. Ground's hollowing out, he says, tapping his sandal against plaza tiles for emphasis. The tiles answer with a dull, almost hollow thud you've never heard before. You feel the sound travel up your shin like a shiver. Ilapa and two Banduria envoys arrive late, their llamas dusty, panniers half-filled. They bring no fish, no salt. Only rumors that farther south an entire settlement emptied overnight. Reed mats left where sleepers should have been. Cooking stones still warm. Some say raiders came. Others claim a poison fog slithered from marshlands. The envoys want to trade for water, a request that would have been laughable last moon. The council grants them 5 jars in exchange for obsidian knives. Sharp edges feel safer than water a city might soon lack. Days stretch, then warp. Each sunrise wobbles hotter. Each afternoon wind arrives earlier. Each evening dust layers thicker on ledges. Children cough dryly. Cala waters bean mash again. Bone flute rehearsals move indoors. Music muffles behind Adobe, but still finds cracks to escape like restless spirits. One twilight you walk the plaza and notice lines of footprints leading toward dunes. Fewer leading back. Families are staging silent tests. A night or two beyond the dunes, See if other valleys hold kinder air. Nobody calls it migration yet, but the shape of absence grows more distinct. A second dust storm blitzes the valley and spawns a tremor strong enough to rattle silt from canal walls. The river snarls, then hushes again, only for minutes this time, but minutes feel like prophecy. Suma's seedlings wilt in an afternoon, their cotyledons scorched at the edges. She gathers chili seeds off-table. Better to carry them while they still dream, she says. That evening, Amy climbs Pyramid Mare and lights a beacon fire early. Blue-green flames fed by seaweed copper salts once reserved for festivals. The gesture feels both plea and warning. Smoke readers interpret the plumes as twin jaguars circling tail to tail, signifying a spiral of departures. Mainstream historians will dig through ash layers of this beacon and carbon date the moment to the same window in which trade items vanish from Caral's refuse heaps. They will cite it as evidence of an organized evacuation. Other scholars will argue the layer indicates nothing but atypical festival timing. Historians are still debating this question. The council votes to prepare provisional journeys. Not an abandonment, they stress, just dispersal until weather calms. Yet everyone packs as though they won't see these pyramids again. You help Corey roll maps. He slips one copy of his crack survey under a brick at the pyramid's base, pats it like a pet. For the ones who'll dig here someday, he mutters. The gesture strikes you as absurdly hopeful. 3 mornings later, you wake before dawn to a plaza humming with muffled activity. Bundles stacked, llamas saddled, fognet poles lashed into sled frames. Calla ladles final pots of thickened anchovy sweet potato mash into sealed gourds. The bone flute ensemble plays a subdued farewell under the sunken plaza's northern bench. Haunting notes that coil upward then flatten into hush, like birds refusing to finish a flight. You've played with them every dawn. Today you stand back, listening. Your flute dangles at your hip, silent. Amy leads a ceremony at the circular hearth. No chili this time, just cotton cords tossed into embers, one for each family leaving. Flames eat them fast, sparks popping like punctuation marks. She speaks to the sky. We travel with your map inside our mouths. May our words stay aligned when nights shift. You wonder if constellations listen. When the procession finally sets out, route decisions fracture like spiderweb lines across a drying lake. One group, guided by Tupac, heads upstream toward rumored meltwater terraces. Another, mostly fishers, angles west to Banduria's harbor. Amy, Suma, Calla, and you lead a central column northeast toward highland pastures said to cradle hidden springs. Corey opts south, chasing talk of subterranean rivers. For a city that once planned plazas by the stars, the exit is anything but choreographed. Yet there is remarkable quiet. No screams, no visible tears. Only the hush of sand swallowing footfalls. Hours into the march, you crest a dune and look back. The pyramids have already lost their familiar outlines, softened into jagged silhouettes behind a thin curtain of dust. You imagine wind smoothing the plaza benches, tugging bone flute racks down, draping sand across star charts until they read like empty constellations. A flutter of panic flaps inside your ribs, but you swallow it. There is no moisture to waste even on fear. The journey is brutal. Days smudge into one long glare. Nights freeze quickly, the cold shocking cracked lips. Children suck cactus slices for water. Elders lean on travois poles like walking staffs. Calla rations stew until it barely coats the gourd bottom. A pack llama collapses. Ilapa's envoy slits its throat quickly. Salvage meat for jerky. You help bury offal, then carve bone pieces for flutes because habit clings even now. Obscure fact, decades later, these improvised instruments turn up in a distant valley dig, bearing Caral zigzag motifs but carved from highland camelid bone. Their discovery fuels fresh debate over how far the diaspora spread. One dusk, while camped near a trickle stream, you and Amy climb a ridge to gauge stars. But haze dims half the sky. Orion's belt appears skewed. Amy's shoulders slump. She removes her condor feathers, brittle now, and buries them in scree, whispering farewell. You slip your bone flute beside the feathers. In case the next traveler needs a map, you say. She thanks you without looking up. After nearly 2 weeks of slogging, the central column splinters further. Suma's group veers east at a fork. Her chili seeds wrapped in cotton hang heavy at her side but still unplanted. Cala chooses a gentler valley slope, hoping to find mesquite for new hearths. You decide to accompany Amy northward, though neither of you pretends to know what waits there. You trudge up the leeward side of a dune at dawn, sand sighing beneath every step, and realize the noise you thought was wind whistling through canyon walls is really just your own breathing gone hoarse. 3 weeks have passed since you last saw Caral's pyramids, yet your calf muscles still expect adobe stairs underfoot, and your lungs still crave the moist river air that smelled faintly of mesquite and wet clay. Now the only scent is scorched dust, hot as a kiln long after sunrise. Behind you stretches a trail of dimples in the sand, your caravan's footprints, meandering like a drunken serpent. They won't survive the next gust. Amy warned you of this the first night beyond the city. The desert rewrites itself faster than any scribe. You had nodded, half believing, half hoping she exaggerated. But in the pale lavender light before dawn, you've watched dunes shrug off yesterday's stories with a shrug of their scaly shoulders. Every morning, it feels like waking inside an hourglass that resets itself at midnight. Your caravan now numbers 16 souls, down from the 40-plus who set out on the provisional journey. Some split for Banduria, tempted by sea fog. Others followed Tupac upriver, hunting meltwater terraces. A handful simply disappeared, leaving behind shallow fire pits that looked cold long before their embers died. Among the 16 remain Amy, Cala, Suma, 2 half-grown herders, a smattering of artisans, and you, the reluctant chronicler whose notebook grows heavier even as supplies dwindle. The llama herd is down to 3 stoic beasts who chew thorny shrubs with the resignation of underpaid dock workers. Wind picks up. Sand glitters in sunrise like powdered mica. You pull cloth over nose, recalling Corey's explanation of desert erosion. Sand eats cities the way stories eat truth, grain by grain. That conversation feels centuries old. You wonder where Corey's engineering party is now, chasing phantom springs or drafting crack maps on fresh adobe in some new valley. You hope his golden tier pyramids remain only a metaphor. By midday your group reaches a low basin ringed by crumbling sandstone. Cala decides it's shade enough for lunch. She parcels dried cactus paddle jerky, reinvented last week when sweet potato supplies vanished, and instructs everyone to suck pebbles to trick tongues into believing they're moist. The trick works until you swallow accidentally and nearly choke. Suma laughs, then coughs when dry dust catches in her throat. Humor sticks, but slowly. Amy spreads her remaining star charts on a blanket of reed mat. She's trimmed most of them down to essential glyphs to lighten her pack. Constellations now look skeletal, like stories stripped to bare verbs. We're near the day of double shadows, she announces, pointing at twin diagonal scratches. If we find a tall rock at dusk and its shadow touches water, that water will last 3 seasons. A teenager asks what to do if there's no rock and no water. Amy folds the chart without answering. After lunch, the caravan trudges on, every step rewriting gravity's contract. You pass clusters of ancient hearthstones, half buried. They might belong to earlier migrants or traders or raiders. The desert doesn't attach footnotes. One stone bears a char pattern shaped like a spiral. Suma kneels, presses palm to residue, whispers something that sounds like mother pulse. When she stands, her eyes sparkle, not with tears, but with a grit reflection that mimics them. Mainstream historical knowledge, later archaeological surveys will quote this basin's coordinates and label the char spiral site E14 temporary encampment, late pre-ceramic dispersal phase. They'll carbon date charcoal to 2040 BCE plus or minus 40 years, aligning with your present flight. They'll suggest these hearths mark a staging ground where Caral migrants mingled with highland foragers, perhaps exchanging drought-resilient crop knowledge. Other scholars will counter-argue that hearths predate Caral's exodus by centuries and simply got repurposed. Historians are still debating this question. Afternoon heat arrives like an overbearing ant, smothering conversation. You slip into the waking dream state desert fosters, where memories overlay reality. You glimpse Caral's plaza benches through dust haze. You hear pelican bone flutes echoing off dunes. You smell chilly sparks, though Cala's cauldron has been cold since yesterday. Daydream collides with present. Your pack strap snaps. You lurch forward, artifacts spilling. A clay spindle whirl. A reed stylus. A broken flute fragment you promised to carry to safety. The shard skitters across sand, lodging between ripples. You chase and retrieve it, brushing grains from incised zigzags. For a moment you consider leaving it, lighter load, faster march. But abandoning it feels like dropping a syllable from a sentence Caral needs told. You wrap it in cloth, lash pack with cactus cord, shoulder weight again. Around sunset the caravan reaches a ridge overlooking a valley floor unusually dark, as though stained by ink. Annie sends scouts. They return with unbelievable news. Remnants of an old marsh, moist ground, finger-wide trickles of brackish water, reeds thin but alive. It's not paradise, but after endless dunes, it's a promise. Cala shakes her pot, counts remaining bean mash, decrees celebration stew. You fetch water in clay jar, tasting it, bitter salty, but liquid. Suma plants 3 chili seeds in damp muck near the reeds. Everyone murmurs blessing. Night descends. The sky here is clean. Dust storms stalled behind far dunes. Stars blink like fresh-napped obsidian. Annie unrolls chart, realigns herself. Tonight, Twin Crab's constellation anchors high in the east, its claws hooking a bright Venus. She smiles faintly. Maybe the sky regained memory. She traces lines in air, marks where canal would run if this valley becomes new home. Cala ladles stew bowls, flavors thin but smoky. For dessert she passes shred of dried lucuma leather. After stew, the bone flute players, all 2 of you, stage a lullaby. Your breath feels dusty, but when notes emerge they carry surprising warmth, bouncing off sandstone outcrops. Echo lasts half a heartbeat, enough to fool ears into thinking a third flute answered. You imagine it's Caral reciprocating from beneath dunes. That night, campfire talk turns to settling. Do you dare unpack fully? Build canals? Carve terraces? Annie says watch water 2 moons. If flow holds, begin. Suma suggests building windbreaks with reed mats anchored by stone, less effort than Adobe. Cala wants clay oven to restore chili roast tradition. Teenagers lobby for llama pens. You sketch notes by fire glow, mapping tasks. But deep inside, everyone knows desert deals slippery cards. Memory of pyramid cracks and river silences claws at optimism. So you draft contingency. New fognets from reeds, water ration cords, travel gourd kits ready. Plan for river silence. You write, because silence returns quicker than songs. At dawn, you and Annie explore marsh edges. She identifies a cluster of algae-stained rocks tall enough to cast double shadows. You mark positions with pebble cairns. Later, as sun sets, you'll test her omen. Meanwhile, you trace channels between reed clumps, forecasting baby canals. You carve first slice with obsidian knife. Water seeps, sluggish but obedient. By midday, terracing plans buzz. Suma organizes digging lines. Cala resurrects seed row chant to set rhythm. Sounds different, less joyful, more measured, but still carries pulse. You almost feel Caral breathing again, transplanted like a cactus cutting budding in new soil. Each spadeful smells of brine and peat. Maybe chili will like salty tang. Mainstream trivia. Centuries later, core samples from this valley reveal alternating layers of marsh peat and desert sand, hinting at cyclical wet phases. Some researchers posit Caral migrants introduced new agricultural regimes here. Others claim marsh persisted naturally, independent of human engineering. Evidence remains ambiguous. Historians are still debating this question. Afternoon clouds creep, rare treat. Drops sprinkle valley. People laugh, catching them on tongues. Annie calls break, orders everyone to stand still, listen. Rain patters reeds, hisses on coals, pings jar rims. Sound echoes against sandstone so beautifully you swear bone flutes join in. Hunger, thirst, crackling joints all hush before that music. But joy is fragile. Next morning, a dry lightning storm ignites distant brush. Flames race valley rim. Smoke curls black ribbons into sky. Caravan scrambles. Dig firebreak trenches around reeds, soak mats, herd llamas to stream. 2 hours later, flames divert, leaving char line but sparing camp. You collapse, heart pounding. Sand, wind, water, fire, each element reminds you settlement is negotiation, not conquest. Charred smell lingers days. You step out of the air-conditioned van and into a wall of desert heat that feels like someone pressed an iron against your cheeks. The Soup Valley in late January has no mercy. Its sky is a single sheet of hammered tin, its ground an anvil hot enough to hard-sear sandals. For a second you blink behind sunglasses, wondering if the mirage at the horizon is an oasis or just your retinas pleading for cold water. Then you remember why you're here and tighten the strap of your field pack. You've volunteered to coax a buried city out of sand, to translate dust into dialogue, to meet Caral where it has slept for roughly 45 centuries. Around you, the dig crew unfolds like a pop-up storybook. Dr. Farid Levasseur, expedition director, plants a survey flag while dictating a funding pitch voice memo into his phone. Geoarchaeologist Maya Singh unloads a spectrometer the size of a small dog. Louis Chun wrestles a drone out of its padded case, its propellers jittery with caffeine from last night's code sprint. Conservator Carla Montenegro hovers over crates of ethanol and lint-free swabs as if guarding newborns. 3 graduate students tumble out next, faces green from the zigzag desert drive, clutching clipboards and expectations. Heat shimmers around the low mesa ahead, the place the drone survey back in Lima nicknamed Breadloaf Ridge. From afar it looks bland, but LiDAR data whispers straight angles beneath that slope, faint signatures too geometric to be chance. Farid calls a brief huddle, eyes gleaming in the glare. He reminds everyone of the timeline: 45 workdays, tight budget, zero tolerance for careless footprints across fragile surfaces. His grin says he plans to achieve twice the scope anyway. You nod, your pulse quickening. This is the closest you'll ever come to time travel. Within an hour, the team raises a rectangle of shade cloth, gridlines the site, and starts the long romance between trowel and soil. The wind carries dust so fine it sneaks under neck gaiters and clings to sweating skin. Maya sinks her knife into the crust. A thin layer peels back to reveal an Adobe brick holding flecks of mica that wink like captive stars. She crouches, runs her spectrometer, and announces clay mixed with river silt and ground shell. Precisely the recipe mainstream textbooks attribute to Caral's builders, those same textbooks that love calling Caral the oldest city in the Americas. You press a gloved finger on the surface. The brick is sun-warm, yielding. In that moment you can almost hear someone 4,000 years away patting the same edge smooth. Lewis's drone lifts, buzzing like a titanium dragonfly. On the tablet feed, the featureless dunes transform into a wireframe city. Neon rectangles stack across the grid. Faint staircases appear like ghosts. You track one shape, a 5-tier stepped mound, rotated slightly off cardinal axes, about the size of a suburban house. Lewis murmurs it matches Pyramid La Galeria's footprint but skewed 20 degrees. Maybe star-aligned, maybe river-aligned. Theories bud as fast as sweat beads. By late afternoon, the diggers reveal a ring of compacted soil. A plaza bench. 20 minutes of gentle brushing later, the bench becomes a circle of benches, and your chest tightens because you recognize the plan from articles you devoured under campus library fluorescence. Caral's orchestral sunken plazas, acoustically sweet, designed, according to one contentious theory, to let bone flutes reverberate like cathedral choirs. You test the notion impulsively by whispering hello. A faint echo strokes back. It's softer than you expect, yet full of intention, as if the city is clearing its throat after a very long nap. Carla photographs each new surface with a color chart, ruling out chemical contamination. She places a stray piece of bone into a zip bag, a hollow section of pelican ulna. The incised zigzags match the patterns excavators discovered in 2001 when Caral first burst into public consciousness. Obscure but delightful knowledge surfaces in your brain. Those zigzags double as a rudimentary tablature. Their spacing indicates which finger holes to cover. You share that tidbit, one grad student's jaw drops. Maya jokes she needs to karaoke with a pelican next time she calibrates the spectrometer. The wind stiffens toward evening. Sand lashes ankles like nettles. Shade cloth flaps. Every gust resets progress, sending fine dust onto freshly brushed bricks. Still, by sunset the plaza's center is visible. A charred ring of stones encircling a hearth. Charcoal flakes scatter among them. You imagine Cala, or someone much like her, sprinkling chili pods into that fire, sending sparks upward in a spiral while bone flutes soared. The team works in silence for a moment, each person alone with that vision. Night falls harsh and sudden. You retreat to base camp, a cluster of nylon tents anchored by jerry cans filled with sand. The generator hums like an irritable bee, powering 2 laptops and a freezer full of expensive reagents. Supper is rehydrated quinoa seasoned with hot sauce. Carla swears is an heirloom recipe but clearly came from a gas station packet. Fireflies of static climb the radio antenna. Levasseur calls Lima to order more shade netting and maybe a crate of electrolyte powder. Everyone's skin tastes of salt. You fall asleep with sand in your socks and the plaza's echo still looping in your skull. At dawn, Lewis shakes you awake. Lightning in the pre-dawn sky illuminates silhouettes of dunes. He wants drone footage with drama. You haul yourself up Breadloaf Ridge. A purple flash reveals a staircase you hadn't noticed. Just 3 steps poking through sand, but definitely man-made. When the storm passes, the team clears a narrow trench. The staircase dives under aeolian layers, each riser pocked with runner grooves. It confirms the logistical genius historians adore. Caral folk dragged sleds loaded with cotton or stone using wooden sliders greased by fish oil. Ross, remote on video chat, sniffs that the grooves might be post-occupational erosion. But Duarte, listening on the same call, practically cackles with triumph. Historians are still debating this question, and the trench just turned up fresh ammunition. 3 days later, a hollow thud guides Maya to a subsurface cavity. You crawl behind her down a slope no taller than a subway tunnel. The air smells of dust and faint brine. A flashlight beam lands on reed baskets stacked like nested Russian dolls. When Carla unwraps the first, cotton thread spills out, white as surf foam. She gasps organic fibers that pure rarely survive. Quick immunodip test reveals lucuma syrup residue and mica sparkles, a stiffener and a shimmer. Even mainstream archaeologists admit Caral's textiles were engineering disguised as glamour. You log the find with shaking hands. The baskets sit exactly where their makers hid them, a time capsule missed by looters and dune shifts. Deeper in the room, a fragmentary mural emerges under LED light. Twin spirals twist and meet nose to nose, painted in ochre and crushed shell. Your spine tingles. The Twin Valley Treaty Sign. You imagine Alapa's envoy presenting obsidian blades in Section 9. The day levees mysteriously burst. The mural appears intact here, as if someone preserved the ideal of partnership even while packing for departure. The field season telescopes into fast forward. Every morning scorching sun, every afternoon swirling dust, every night a hackathon of laptops processing cloud point data. Spectrographs sing, macro lenses wink. You map the plaza acoustics with a sweep tone, 100 Hz to 5 kHz across benches. The returning curve peaks exactly where G-sharp bone flutes once soared. Intentional design or happy accident becomes the running debate that powers breakfast chatter and fuels midnight coffee. One evening you blow a replica flute at the hearth. The note lingers half a second. Maya records, grins, quotes signal to noise. You just feel goosebumps. Halfway through the dig, a busload of undergraduates arrives to join field school. They whoop when they see bricks. They upload selfies with bone fragments. You balance outreach with preservation, enforcing no TikTok dance inside trench with surgical scolding. Yet their enthusiasm attracts donors. Within 48 hours #ancient sparkle trends, and a philanthropist messages Levasseur, need naming rights? He chuckles but files the email. One afternoon clouds mushroom. Lightning explodes on the pyramid rim. For a split second the stepped mound shines silver. The drone camera captures the strike, and the still frame later graces half a dozen science blogs. The storm also peels a dune flank. New steps appear, edges crisp as yesterday's. You scramble up, count risers, photograph each groove. Every discovery spawns 2 more questions. Was Caral's final exodus timed with electrical storms? Did they see lightning as condemnation or benediction? In camp that night, Maya speculates storms may have symbolized sky gods arguing, an ominous reprise of those dust storm tremors you once felt leaving the city. No texts survive to confirm, so the notion drifts into the maybe column. You crawl out of your nylon cocoon before sunrise, toes already gritty, senses poised for the dry thunderclap of heat that will roll over Breadloaf Ridge in a few hours. The camp still dozes. Well, half of it. A low murmur leaks from the mess tent, punctuated by sharp hisses like steam escaping a cracked kettle. You recognize the cadence. Academic bickering brewed thick as espresso. 2 silhouettes bend over a folding table strewn with printouts and half-drained enamel mugs. One is Dr. Anika Duarte, bun coiled tight and unyielding. The other, Dr. Lionel Ross, beard bristling like an offended porcupine. They've been sparring ever since you exposed the plaza's flawless resonance. Their quarrel has become Dawn's unofficial reveille. You hover in the doorway, cradling your own mug of instant chicory. Duarte mutters about harmonic nodes and purposeful bench curvature. Ross counters with stochastic geometry and the probability of lucky acoustics. They toss citation years like duelists brandishing foils. Magwell 2017, Helbling 2019, unpublished field notes, 2023. You sip lukewarm bitterness and consider whether to dive in or remain Switzerland. Then Levasseur breezes in, a portable Sirocco, and drops a flash drive onto their table. Lab results, he says, voice pleasant but edged with let's focus. The thermocline of tension shifts. Duarte scrolls first. Charcoal from the hidden hearth calibrates to 2048 BCE plus or minus 30. Her smile curves. A date inside Caral's twilight window, perfect for farewell ritual. Ross's eyes narrow at the uncertainty band. He points out it overlaps routine maintenance years. She reposts that carbon isotopes also show traces of chili capsaicin, not common in everyday hearths. Ross counters that ceremonial chili could be post-ritual seasoning for mundane stew. You see his vein pulse, faint but eager. Levasseur, sensing storm surge, reassigns tasks. Ross will accompany Lewis to shoot drone photogrammetry of the newly revealed staircase. Duarte will supervise grad students dusting the southern bench arc for ivory spatula fragments. It's a tactical separation. You sign up for the bench team closer to shade, closer to the argument you can't resist. By 8 a.m. sunlight has sharpened to a razor edge. The southern benches gleam. As you brush sediment, you feel how each stone lip slopes minutely upward toward the apex. That subtle incline might channel sound, Duarte's entire thesis. She kneels beside you, measuring angles with a plastic protractor scratched from field use. 7.5 degrees, she murmurs, then sketches a diagram on her palm. Stone, flute, bouncing note. She looks up, cheeks smudged with dust, eyes alight. Engineered, she repeats, either to herself or to the universe. An hour later Ross strides up, sweat darkening his collar. Drone pass shows random step erosion along north flank, he announces. No uniformity, no Zen goddess of precision. Chance built this as much as craft. Duarte's protractor hovers. She straightens, voice calm. Random erosion on exterior doesn't negate deliberate shaping inside. You're conflating decay with design. Ross retorts, you're romanticizing coincidence. A grad student drops his brush. Everyone freezes. The desert hush magnifies their disagreement. You defuse by asking Ross for drone images. He pulls tablet. Sun-scorched steps, scattered rock slides, a lightning scorch. True, the wear looks chaotic. But you also notice grooves on buried risers aligning like guides for sled runners. You point them out. Ross half smiles. Data he can't deny, and says, fine, logistics involved some order. Doesn't mean priests tuned stone like luthiers. During lunch, Carla slides between combatants with the subtlety of a UN envoy, brandishing a bone flute fragment newly uncovered near the south rim. She dips a cotton swab into ethanol, wipes interior, and announces trace residue of beeswax and chili resin. Sound hole sealant and aromatic perfuming. Everyone blinks. Ross rubs beard. Duarte swats an imaginary fly. The fragment, tiny, broken, nonetheless hums with import. An instrument once played inside this plaza, its holes sealed to keep tones stable, its breath infused with spice. After the meal, Maya calls from the total station. Ground-penetrating radar has located a baffling void directly under the central hearth, deeper than the chamber we opened. The team votes. Dig a narrow shaft, just wide enough for one explorer. Ross volunteers, perhaps to gather fresh ammunition. Duarte insists on going second. They lower Ross holding a headlamp and a GoPro. 5 minutes later he hollers, voice echoing tinny through the shaft. Inside the void he's found a circular alcove lined with cotton sacks, ancient sandbags. Embedded into wall plaster are fragments of broken flutes, each piece arranged into a radiating pattern, like spokes of a skeletal sun. On the floor sits a shallow ceramic bowl caked with hardened copper-green residue. Seaweed ash, likely, the same that colored festival fires turquoise. Ross's voice trembles on radio. It's deliberate patterning. He emerges dusty, eyes glittering. Duarte descends, camera strapped to helmet. She returns with equal parts wonder and vindication. Those flute spokes, she says, catching breath, are oriented to cardinal points, broken intentionally, placed radially. That's choreography. Ross concedes the arrangement is unlikely to be trash disposal. He opens mouth to retort but closes it. Threads of accord twine like fragile roots. Evening slides in, painting dunes rose and amethyst. Levasseur gathers crew under the shade canopy, now lit by lantern glow. He proposes drafting a preliminary interpretive statement to accompany tomorrow's press photos. Must blend caution with excitement, data with narrative. Ross and Duarte exchange a wary glance, then sit side by side at the folding table. Their laptops glow twin moons. Sentences start stiff. Ross types, acoustic anomalies appear to correlate with structural geometry, while Duarte adds, preliminary evidence suggests purposeful tuning through iterative construction. They negotiate verbs the way diplomats trade territory, replacing proves with indicates, designed with likely engineered. Each concession feels less like surrender, more like duet. Grad students inch closer, witnessing scholarship become conversation rather than combat. You take second shift watch. Midnight air is a balm after brutal day. Drone lights blink against Orion. You wander to Plaza Rim, sit on bench still warm from afternoon sun. You pull a polymer replica of the broken flute from your pack, close eyes, and blow a soft note. It arcs into darkness, brushes bench wall, returns. Not loud, but enough to raise neck hairs. You imagine Ross nodding ruefully, Duarte smirking gently. A footstep crunches behind. Maya settles beside you. She's holding the fragment Carla cleaned, sealed in archival pouch. Breath never fully leaves, she whispers. You slip replica away. She slides pouch into thigh pocket. Safe. For a moment neither speaks, sharing hush thicker than dust. Then she says, tomorrow they'll argue again. That's fine. The plaza wants voices. You nod. Stars pulse overhead. Bone flute echo fades. You rise, start to leave, then glance back. In darkness benches gleam faintly. You think you see a radial pattern of broken flutes in their curve. A silent fireworks frozen mid-bloom. Perhaps the plaza wasn't just concert hall but archive, storing sound as shape. By morning, Ross and Duarte have produced a single-page bulletin. It ends with a sentence neither would have written alone. The evidence collected this season invites us to hear intentionality and accident as harmonizing rather than competing forces in Caral's architectural soundscape. Levasseur staples it to photo release, signs. Piece holds, fragile yet tangible as cotton fiber under microscope. The day's work resumes. More trenching, more LiDAR passes, more whispered speculations. Ross even hums while photographing grooves. Duarte corrects a student without rancor. You feel tension siphon off like river silt after flood. Later, as sun lowers, Carla extracts a second flute fragment layered with wax still faintly scented by time-scorched chili. She hands it to Ross first. He smiles, raises it like a toast, and passes to Duarte. That night, supper stew tastes richer. Maybe Cala's recipe resurrected via gas stove, maybe victory seasoning. Lanterns flicker. Someone strums a field ukulele. Conversations swirl from isotopic dating to favorite field snack hacks. You sit apart, scribbling notes. Mainstream fact, you wake before dawn on what everyone keeps calling the last day, although the desert hasn't signed off on that label. Breadloaf Ridge lies hushed beneath a pewter sky, the air so still you hear your own eyelashes rasp when you blink. For 6 straight weeks you have traced Carol's bones through sand, brick by brick, echo by echo, and now the sight feels as familiar as the inside of your sleeping bag. Yet it still manages surprises like a friend who suddenly reveals they can juggle torches. Today, you suspect, will be full of torch juggling. The generator offers its first cough at 4:47 a.m. Blinking camp lights awake. You slip from your tent, tasting the familiar cocktail of dust and instant coffee brewing somewhere near the mess tarp. Dr. Farid Levasseur is already dictating voice notes about delivery trucks, export permits, and exactly how many silica packets can be crammed into a shipping crate without violating customs regulations. He greets you with a quick nod, then stabs at his tablet, chasing a budget line that refuses to align. The dig's heartbeat is paperwork as much as trowels, and Farid keeps both rhythms. You grab coffee, find a perch on the plaza's lowest bench, and watch the sky edge from pewter to rose. A breeze stirs, soft as a lullaby. When it passes, the air carries that copper-penny smell only deserts seem to produce, like rain's ghost whispering it once existed. You stretch, vertebrae cracking, and think, this is the last morning the plaza looks exactly like this. Tomorrow tarps will cloak benches, sandbags will cover trench walls, and the sun will rise on a landscape sealed for its own protection, until next season or next decade, depending on who signs which grant. Maya Singh appears, spectrometer holstered like a futuristic sidearm. Hair escaped from its braid in a way dust cannot conquer. She settles beside you, hands you a small plastic vial. Inside sits a single mica flake recovered from the hidden chamber below the hearth. Under lantern light, the flake glows like a fragment of galaxy. A goodbye present, she says. You turn the vial, watching sparkle shift. Mainstream fact, Caral's builders laced Adobe with mica not merely for aesthetics. Recent thermal studies show the mineral also reflects infrared, keeping interior spaces cooler. Obscure fact, some experimental archaeologists think mica specks actually improved acoustics by scattering high-frequency overtones. Whether that was calculated or coincidental remains hotly debated. Historians are still arguing the question in conference hallways that smell of stale coffee and ambition. Work begins just after sunrise. The plan is simple on paper. Finish mapping the staircase trench, photograph the radial flute cache again under raking light, and lift the last basket from the chamber. Then we pack, Farid declares, eyes scanning the horizon as though the desert might object. You gather your tools, slip a polymer flute into your belt, an odd but comforting habit, and head for the staircase. The trench feels cooler this morning. Perhaps the earth itself is exhaling relief that no more blades will peel its layers today. You kneel, trowel poised, brushing sand from the sled grooves one last time. Each groove bears crosshatching where wooden runners scrape thousands of journeys. You trace one with a gloved finger, imagining cotton rolls sliding down when Caral's river still kissed pyramid foundations. The mainstream story says those sleds delivered building materials. But today you let yourself picture them ferrying baskets of chili and bundles of bone flutes for a farewell concert no modern ear will ever hear. Louis Chun hovers above with his drone, filming cinematic passes. In the video feed, the stairway resembles a ribcage curling out of the dune. He narrates into his mic, final sweep, altitude 10 meters, angle 20 degrees. Farid will slice this footage into a fundraising reel before tomorrow's flight to Lima. Your watch beeps 10 a.m. time to photograph the flute cache. Carla Montenegro already waits by the shaft, gloves on, archival tray balanced across knees. The air here is thick with expectation and the faint scent of ethanol. You clip a line to your harness and descend the tunnel carved by hands that might have belonged to Corey's engineers or Suma's children. Headlamp beams across the radial display. Broken pelican bone flutes embedded in plaster like sun rays, each aligned to cardinal points. You breathe slow, aiming not to disturb dust older than many languages. Carla lowers a foil-wrapped sensor to log microclimate. Humidity 2%, she mutters. Perfect freeze-dry. She documents the pattern, one shot every 10 degrees. You help, shifting lights for contrast. As you work, you mull the broken flute's meaning. Were they silenced deliberately? Blades snapped to ensure the plaza's voice stayed only memory? Or were they offerings, each fracture a vow? Ross insists they're ritual retirement. Duarte claims they served as acoustic dampers to decommission the plaza. The truth lies somewhere between. Back in sunlight, you find Ross and Duarte bent over the folding table again, but less like duelists, more like collaborators. Overnight, they refined their joint statement. Duarte points to an adjective. Ross nods, deletes it, replaces with something softer. You catch phrases about interplay of intentional and emergent acoustics, ritualized deposition practices, and adaptive engineering in the face of environmental stressors. Progress, you think. Then they argue about using the word symphony, overly poetic, perfectly apt. And you smile. Caral still sparks debate. Lunch tastes of tinned sardines and flatbread, but Calla would approve. Carla sneaks chili flakes onto the communal plate, releasing a bloom of heat that chars tongues and jolts brains awake. Fed, you record last profiles with the total station, stow the reflector rod, and help roll grid strings. Maya logs spectrometer files. Lewis labels drone SD cards. Grad students collapse shade tarps like deflated kites. Mid-afternoon, the temperature vaults to 42 degrees Celsius. Heat waves dancing above the plaza floor where you once traced echo loops at dusk. The team retreats under the mess canopy, but you linger, wanting private farewell. You remove the polymer flute, step to plaza center, and kneel. The benches curve around you, stone lips parted. You raise the instrument, inhale slowly, count of 4, and release a single note. It hovers, curls along the benches, comes back softened. The delay is unmistakable, about 0.6 of a second. A microecho, but packed with meaning. You let the note fade, then blow another, sliding downward in pitch. Each echo overlaps, weaving faint harmony. For a shimmer of time, the plaza sings with you. You imagine ghost musicians answering from every bench. Ross's statistics, Duarte's star charts, Amy's condor flute, Suma's seed song. You close eyes. Beneath lids you see flickers of distant firelight, turquoise flames licking night sky. A shadow falls across your face. You open eyes to find a group of locals from Soup Pueblo standing at trench margin. Led by Don Felipe, the guide whose grandmother said Caral slept under sand because she wanted to dream. They ask, quietly, if they might hear the echo too. You show them where to stand. They take turns blowing cautious notes. Echo answers each time, gentle as a friend's laughter. A young girl giggles, clasping the flute to chest. You gift her the replica, heart thudding at the symbolism. Breath passes on. Packing accelerates. Carla seals final artifact crate with tamper tape. Levasseur signs chain of custody forms. Maya logs spectrometer calibration files to cloud. At sunset, camp dismantles. Tents snap down, aluminium poles stacked, generator drained. Everyone carries something. A soil sample, a survey stake, a story. Yet one task remains. Lift the last basket from the chamber. Levasseur insists it travel as carry-on to Lima. With headlamps and latex gloves, you and Carla descend the tunnel again. The basket's woven lid resists for a moment, then gives. Inside lies a coiled cotton cord dyed pale crimson. Faded chili pigment. Knots pepper its length. Wide gaps, tight clusters. Carla inhales. Pre-kipu, she whispers. You thrill. Knot cords appear centuries later across the Andes. Finding one here blurs timelines. You photograph in situ, secure it in a foam cradle. Academic fireworks will fly. Historians are definitely going to debate this. Night sweeps in quick. With camp dark, you haul duffels to van. Wind kicks up dust devils, as if desert wants to reclaim footprints already. Ross hands you a printed copy of the co-authored bulletin, fresh from field printer, ink still smelling sharp. On page 1, your name appears in contributor list. You feel pulse leap again. Crew gathers at Plaza Center for final toast, lukewarm instant cocoa. Under starlight, benches fade into shadow arcs. Ross raises mug. To Caral, who argued with us,